All right, let me blast off. Second day of the Burger Reich. Is TikTok censorship upon us? Trump's plans for Gaza. Your YouTube channel's been popping off. Trump's awful policies already causing harm. More scandals, more hogwatch for Gaza, and more. Japanuary officially begins. Get in now. Twitch.tv/Hasanabi. Okay. All right. We got the skibidi toilet one. I'm just going to use that one. I saw Tate's doing it. Ironically, they're trying to make it the next. What? Oh, yeah. Andrew Tate is doing the Nazi salute. Ironically, I saw that. Yeah. Will Japanuary be EST friendly perchance? So my goal in Japan, I'll just briefly bring this up. My goal in Japan is to hopefully stream like approximately at like right now I start at 11 a.m. Pacific. Now 11 a.m. Pacific unfortunately is what? Let's look at the time in Tokyo right now. Let's look at the Tokyo time right now, okay? Tokyo time right now is 4 a.m. 4 a.m. is a little too rich for my blood. It might be a little too early for me. Okay, so I'm probably gonna start at 5 a.m. Okay, which means I'm probably gonna start 12 p.m. Pacific time, which means it's gonna be at 3 p.m. EST. Okay, that's the problem. It's my problem, but don't worry, I won't make it your problem. And for the people who are saying you're crazy, you're nuts, I did this. I literally did this last time. Hello? I straight up did this last time. That's like exactly what I did. So I'm gonna do 3 to 4 hours of regular desktop commentary content, as I usually do when I'm out there. Okay. And then afterwards, we're gonna do an IRL. You did it twice, actually. Yeah, I've done it twice. I've been to Japan twice. Both times I planted my ass, I sat my white ass down, and I listened and I streamed. Okay. And last time I did that, there was a lot of drama happening in America. And I suspect this time when I'm in Japan, there will probably also, once again, be a lot of drama happening in America. And I suspect that nothing will change in terms of my like regular stream, regular broadcasting, all that stuff. Like I'll probably, do my very best to, continue doing my regular ass streams, as I would have done if I was sitting here in Los Angeles, sunny Los Angeles, California. The only difference being that my vibes will be immaculate, significantly better than if they would be if I was stuck in LA. The only reason for that is because, as many of you know, when I'm in Japan, I'm in a much better mood. Were you in Japan when Queen Elizabeth died or somewhere else? I was at shit camp when Queen Elizabeth died. New wildfire in LA, above LA just broke out. That's not gonna be my problem. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be out of here. What shirt are you wearing? A buddy of mine gave this to me. My TikTok edit of you explaining we didn't need Elon doing that. Wow, this one did go viral. Look at that. In succession. Damn. My TikTok edit of you explaining we didn't need Elon doing that salute to know he's a Nazi is popping off. Elon Musk hit it, okay? Twice. In succession, enthusiastically, and dare I say belligerently. He even hit the chest while hitting it, okay? You want to know why it's funny? Because you don't need that to know that Elon Musk is a fucking Nazi. Like, what are we talking about? Context here is that Musk supports AfD, the far-right party in Germany. Not only that, but also Elon Musk has talked with the leadership of the AfD, the neo-Nazi party in Germany, about how Hitler was actually a socialist doing historical revisionism surrounding the Holocaust, okay? Elon Musk has also unbanned every single in North America and around the globe after purchasing Twitter. Elon Musk in that process has also personally followed neo-Nazi accounts. Elon Musk has highlighted neo-Nazi accounts. Elon Musk famously responded to a person doing the classic neo-Nazi anti-Semitic statement that like Jews are doing unlimited immigration from the third world of like lower status people, specifically to destroy Western civilization. Elon Musk responded to that person and said, "You have said the absolute truth." That ideology was echoed initially by the synagogue shooter that's responsible for the worst anti-Semitic hate crime in the United States of America, in modern American history. Yep. Did you get a haircut? Yeah, I did. I logged on to IG today. My first rule was Andrew Tate doing the salute too. My feed going right. Everything is going right. Okay? Everything is going right. I'm not going to lie to you. Everything is going right. I see no reason to deny this. I see no reason to avoid speaking on it. Virtually everything is going right. There are a lot of people who are going to feel more comfortable openly stating their stupid perspectives in, their belligerent reactionary perspectives. And there's going to be a lot of people also, people who are already on the far right are going to be more open about their neo-Nazi, their neo-Nazi tendencies. People who are center right are going to become more far right. And people who had previously masked their true, silly political perspective will be more open about it. They'll be more open about their political perspectives. And also, the third category, is that a lot of content creators that look at the sphere of influence online will also personally fake it like they're right wing, specifically so that they can get clout. Okay, that is the case. That is what's going to happen. It's been happening already, and to a certain degree, I think that has also led to the Trump victory, or at least like a lot of people who normally wouldn't care about politics found themselves in the throes of right-wing politics. And that is where we are. That is where we're at. The reality of the matter is all you got is one another. Community organizing, labor organizing, because the Democratic Party is also kind of dropped the ball. Okay? Democratic Party's dropped the ball. There is no leftist momentum. There is no coalition of ideologically minded, pro-labor focused, truly resistant people in this country. And the institutions are also not going to hold up a strong fight. Okay? That is the problem. That is the issue. That has been the issue, but it's going to become a much larger issue now that Trump is in power and all of his cronies are actively working to ruin the world, not just the country. So, can leftists take advantage of these next 4 years? No, I don't think so. I don't think so, but it's not because I'm being pessimistic. It's because there is no underlying structural help people can rely on. So we're just going to keep building it. Okay? We're going to keep building it. A lot of people keep asking me, like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What can we do, Hassan? What can we do, Hassan? What can we do, Hassan? And right now, we just have to be in a holding pattern. We have to try and protect our marginalized neighbors, whether they're undocumented, whether they're trans. That's what we have to do. We have to hold the line. And eventually, I think through that process, we will be able to figure out a way out of this situation. Okay? Question mark. There hasn't been a better time to build legitimacy for a third option. In the upcoming months, I will talk more extensively about what these defensive measures will look like. To the best of my ability within the legal structure. A legal structure that is obviously getting increasingly more restrictive as time goes on. Okay? But we'll figure it out. Together, we will figure it out. So, on that note, let's get started. Can you talk about the trans executive order today? I got my gender marker changed on all my government docs and now I'm really scared. Yeah. I will talk about that in a little bit. Okay. So first and foremost, there is the contradictions will inherently worsen. Okay. The contradictions will worsen in this time. And I think a lot of people will be agitated. I'll just say this much before I go into January 6th defendants are being released from custody and talking about liberal media and what they're choosing to pay attention to and what they're not necessarily offering a lot of coverage to. One thing I will say is this. Last time around in 2016, everyone was trying to organize. Everyone was excited. They even brunchified the hashtag liberal resistance. But the problem then was that hashtag liberal resistance that was also backed by institutions as well oftentimes fell short of what was necessary, because that kind of resistance was inherently commodified and worked to basically filter back into the Democratic Party and whatever their interests were. And that kind of resistance also almost entirely revolved around the boundaries that the Democratic Party had presented. And what I mean by this is that it was not inherently anti-capitalist, and it was maybe at most, in its most radical form, was usually revolving around identity markers, okay? It rarely ever had class analysis. It was not a real resistance against the proto-fascist administration of Donald Trump. Okay, stop hating Dems, bro. That's not what I'm not hating on Democrats right now. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. The Democratic Party is separate from the Democratic Party's base of support. I have a firm and committed belief that many liberals that, vote for the Democratic Party and never really think about it is many of these liberals, I think, they would be easily on board with significantly more quote unquote radical politics if they were presented with it. Okay? That's it. Like, with the exception of certain things, with the exception of certain initiatives that were taken in this time frame, most of the resistance, or the broad majority of the resistance, came from liberal media, which commodified said resistance against proto-fascism, but also pacified it. Okay? I don't think it's going to happen this time around, because people are inevitably going to look for alternatives. They're going to look for alternative ways of thinking. They're going to look for alternative ways of organizing. And it does kind of seem like the media apparatus and the organizations that previously were tasked with like defending some of the marginalized people and the processes that the Trump administration will enact, the awful cruelty that the Trump administration will enact, they've kind of also dropped the ball, right? Can you provide an example of commodification? Yes, a great example of commodification is what happened with Black Lives Matter. The Black Lives Matter movement was a radical one. It was a decentralized movement. It was built out of activists on the streets who truly were being impacted by the disproportionate targeting of police, okay? And their demands were seen as far too radical, far too disruptive. And under the Obama administration, Black Lives Matter was kind of like the Gaza situation under Joe Biden. Liberals hated Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Obama straight up said that the Black Lives Matter people were thugs. Okay, I still remember the Pod Johns apologizing under the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, that Black Lives Matter was actually a good thing, and they were wrong initially in their assessment of BLM. But what happened under the Trump administration? This inherently radical, decentralized movement basically got packaged up and commodified, where you had Walmart and numerous other mega corporations offering aesthetic support to BLM. TikTokers who would vote for Donald Trump later down the line were throwing up the black fist on their TikTok profiles. It became a commodity. It became a thing that everyone could say. It became a thing that everyone was on board with, and it was substanceless. Ultimately, the demands being made by these activists were valid. They were moral. They were valid. They made sense. They wanted to spend more money on their communities. They wanted to make sure that these communities got more funds to avoid further violence, to deal with the socioeconomic conditions that they were facing. But a lot of those funds, especially in the local taxing structure and the local budget allotment, was going directly back to the police that were harming them. Okay? And what ended up happening in that process is not only did the quote unquote international BLM organization basically was run by grifters, a bunch of the other people that were tasked with being the spokesperson for Black Lives Matter ended up working underneath the Democratic Party, or at least doing their own thing. And there was a lot of mismanagement of funds in the process as well. And the other people who were activists, like the actual street level activists of Black Lives Matter, all died under mysterious circumstances, like 6 of them. And the ones that didn't die became spokespeople for the Democratic Party or had their own fallout internally. And the international organization of BLM basically turned into, International Organization of Black Lives Matter turned into this meme that you, mismanagement of funds, that's funny. Yeah, no, I'm being very charitable here. No, it was grift. It was grifting. Okay, people took funds and spent it on their own personal nonsense. And the International Black Lives Matter organization is basically a grift operation that's like pro-Israel now, but also simultaneously constantly getting cooked by regulators for also doing charity fraud. So my point is, that's a perfect example of the commodification of a otherwise initially radical movement. That's number one. Number two, what else happened? What else happened in that process? Not only was it diluted, but the entire movement was turned into a joke ultimately, even though the demands initially were just. Okay, even though the initial demands were just, but it turned into a joke, and it turned into a call sign for the reactionary right to basically say, you guys are bad. You like BLM? Look at BLM. All the corporations love BLM, right? And in that process, millions of Americans, especially young Americans, that had their first foray into radical politics and protesting the government, learned a very sad lesson. That lesson that they learned was that no matter what you do, you go out and you take it to the streets, you protest, and then you go out and you vote. You know, hold your nose and you go and you vote for Joe Biden because he's the only option that can defeat Donald Trump, it seems, right? And what did these people get in return for that? The lesson that they learned is nothing. You get nothing. You will shut up, and the Democratic Party won't even give you the already neutered 8 can't wait bill that they said that they were going to pass once they are in power. So for a lot of people, they were like, okay, well, that's the lesson I learned. I take it to the streets. I do all the right things. I do all the right things that they wrote in books. They told me I'm supposed to protest in the streets, okay, within the confines of the First Amendment. They told me I'm supposed to go out and vote for my politicians. I did both of those things, and then I got nothing in return. None of these demands came to fruition. So for a lot of people, that's the very sad lesson that they learned in their first foray into radical politics. And I suspect this is part of the reason why some of them actually turned right-wing and reactionary, okay? And I suspect this is also the reason why many of them didn't vote for the Democrats at all, just didn't vote at all. And last but not least, I think that this ultimately, like the nihilism that kicked in that process, ultimately created this ground for the reactionary right to come back stronger than before. Now, having said that, we also obviously saw the Democratic administration, that's supposed to be the adults in the room, that are supposed to be supposed to be the adults that are focused on maintaining the rule-based international order, completely cast that aside. Numerous wars broke out, and our competent leadership was woefully incompetent in the face of all of that. Okay? Now, you have to fight back against this kind of nihilistic attitude. You have to fight back against it no matter what, because if you actually succumb to the whims of nihilism, well, you might find yourself in the throes of reactionary politics, just like all these other people. So that's why I always point out that change does not happen overnight, and that it's marginal and it takes a very long time, and that and that you're supposed to do these things not because you want immediate gratification, but you're supposed to do these things because you want to leave a better future for your for the next generation. So you have to keep going no matter what. And I will do the same. That's it. So on that note, let's get to the January 6th defendants emerged from custody after Trump issues pardons. And the police, brotherhood of the police, the unions are very upset, it seems, that Donald Trump pardoned people who beat the shit out of cops.
It's now President Trump. After he pardoned and commuted the sentences of the January 6 rioters, some of the most high-profile defendants have already been released from prison. It's drawn angry responses from police. Senior political correspondent Rachel Scott has the story. Good morning, Rachel.
George, good morning to you. And the officers there that defended this Capitol on January 6 told me they started receiving these automated courtesy phone calls from the Department of Justice, letting them know that the rioters who they testified against, the ones who were convicted for assaulting and attacking them, were now being released from prison.
This morning, hundreds of rioters, including those who assaulted police officers on January 6th, released from prison. President Donald Trump asked why he commuted the sentences of people like Stuart Rhodes, founder of the Oath Keepers militia, charged with sedition and sentenced to 18 years.
I thought their sentences were ridiculous and excessive.
Trump previously said he would look at individual cases, but the president, within hours of taking the oath, pardoned nearly all of the 1,600 people charged in the attack. 140 officers were injured as the mob stormed the Capitol. Officer Daniel Hodges screaming for help, crushed by surging rioters. Those rioters pardoned, or their sentences were commuted by Trump. In an interview, Officer Hodges, who is still on the force, telling me it's a miscarriage of justice. Former Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn testified about facing off against the mob.
I told them to just leave the Capitol, and in response they yelled, "No, man, this is our house."
He says
oh yeah, he did pardon Ross Ulbricht, or whatever his name is, the Silk Road guy, and I will be talking about that. I have covered it in the past, the history of the Silk Road and like what happened to Silk Road, and also I will do that today again. I remember watching like a documentary on it on stream before, and I will do that as well. Yeah, he did. And he did that as a gimme to the libertarians too, because once again, no matter what, this man understands. Yeah, here's me reacting to the dark side of the Silk Road. So, yeah, I will probably react to like another long and convoluted documentary about what happened with Silk Road and where it went. But that's it. Trump doesn't care. He does not give a heck. He does not give a damn. Okay? He does not care. He will give you that delicious, juicy W that you crave. Okay? Do you think Ross is as rich as Elon given his crypto wallets? I don't know. He does not care if his most loyal hogs actually beat up cops. He will unban them. If there is a vote to gain, or if there is some level of confidence that he can get from people, if there's some kind of confidence that he can get from a constituency, no matter how small, he's going to unban them. He's going to unban those people. Okay? January 6th rioter already arrested on gun charges. That's amazing. My man said, Shawshank Redemption, put me back in, chief. I don't know how to live. I don't know how to live any other way. Put me back in. The wonderful nature of the American criminal justice system. He said, put me back in, please.
President is trying to rewrite history.
The officers feel hurt and betrayed, and it's a slap in the face.
In an internal memo obtained by ABC News, the chief of Capitol Police saying, when there is no price to pay for violence against law enforcement, it sends a message that politics matter more than our first responders. The president's pardons include more than 600 people charged with assaulting or resisting law enforcement. On Capitol Hill, many Republicans not pushing back.
I think like the annoying part of all of this, to me at least, is that one, this is unpopular, but it still doesn't matter because like he's giving his most active base of support, his biggest sycophants, a major W. He's saying like, listen, you stood by me and I'm going to stand by you. Okay. That's important. That's important for Trump, especially because if he wants to have like some semblance of brown shirts who will do his bidding in ways that like even the police or the military might not be able to do within the existing legal confines. These guys will now feel emboldened. Okay, that's really important to understand. They will feel emboldened. They will feel like Donald Trump has their back. So that's really important for him. But the thing that's really frustrating to me about this is that like you can go to jail for a million different stupid things in this country. Okay, if you go to jail, if you're poor, you have a very high likelihood of finding yourself within the throes of the criminal justice system. And unfortunately for many, the American criminal justice system is not exactly open-minded. They will cook you. They will ruin your life for the rest of your life. Okay? So that double standard here is probably frustrating for many Americans who are like, well, you know, my dad got a resisting arrest charge for speaking back to a police officer at a regular traffic stop. Okay. And he had to spend time in prison for that. But these guys actually literally beat the shit out of cops and insurrection. And now they're walking free and pardoned and have their records expunged. Like, that's crazy, right? My buddy spit on a cop and got 3 years. Yeah, that's considered assault on a peace officer. And straight up, judges will throw the book at you. Okay. It's crazy.
2021, Texas Senator John Cornyn said those who planned and participated in the violence that day should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
It's the president's prerogative.
Are you comfortable with that, though? Does that send the right message from your party?
That's not the question. The question is who has the authority, and the president has the authority.
As I've said before, we're looking forward to the next 4 years, not the last 4.
Others suggested the pardons went too far.
I do not support the pardons if they were given to people who committed violent crimes, including assaulting police officers or breaking windows.
But Alabama,
I hate these people so much. I just think it's all aesthetics. They behave, the Republicans that are at the edge of the party, and this is like an especially dying breed. Okay, Republicans at the edge of the party that are an especially dying breed, like Susan Collins, okay, are so annoying because they always hit that Democrat line where they're like, we are looking at this. I am very concerned. I'm very concerned. It's like, oh, really? You're concerned, Susan Collins? Great. Thank you. I hadn't heard that 700,000 times the last time Donald Trump was president. And then you always go out of your way to vote alongside Donald Trump 90+% of the time. I'm always looking into it. I'm Susan. I'm always looking into it. And I'm always feeling very concerned. Okay. Also, here's the other part of this. Look at that. Truth bomb, baby. Biden pardoning Hunter is more unpopular than Trump pardoning the January 6 rioters per Wall Street Journal poll. Hunter pardon, 22% support, 74% oppose. January 6 pardons, 43% support, 54% oppose. Okay? That's a truth nuke for you. Okay? There you go. There you go. How is that possible? What are you talking about? One is read as a spoiled Nepo baby who was presented as like the worst villain of the Biden administration, in many instances unjustifiably, because he was just a crackhead fail son, okay? And they greatly overemphasized his crimes and routinely lied about it. They said that he was like doing crazy wheeling and dealing at the behest of the Biden crime family or whatever. The other, the January 6 political hostages, was presented as like a group of, you know, political hostages that were unfairly maligned and unjustifiably prosecuted by the big, scary Brandon administration. In some instances, you have to remember, media is very powerful, okay? And in other circumstances, you have to remember, January 6 jet ski dealership owners and numerous other people are closer, both aesthetically and also through their class position, to the random hogs that are living in these random neighborhoods, as opposed to the fail son of a deeply unpopular, decrepit old man, who was the president, okay? But ultimately, It doesn't matter. Popularity and popular support for these actions don't matter. That is the point I wanted to make. Okay? That is the point I wanted to make. It does not matter. Do you see what I'm saying? When is the last time, with the exception of Trump actually pushing a stay of execution for TikTok, or with the exception of Donald Trump before he came into office, pushing Israel to at least follow through on the ceasefire in the interim period as they light the West Bank on fire, obviously. With those two exceptions, and also, I guess, like swapping out Joe Biden 100 days out from the election, when have you ever seen the American government in all of its different units, right? Not just like the legislative body, but the judiciary, all the way up to the Supreme Court. When is the last time you've seen the American government respond to popular sentiment with, we hear you, we see you, we're going to enact this agenda? I ask you seriously. I ask you sincerely. When is the last time you've seen any member of the government successfully push for, in our lifetimes, successfully push for something that virtually everybody wanted? Minimum wage rage in like 2007. Not to mention that leftists are also anti-establishment when joined with anti-establishment hogs to hold rich Nepo drug addicts is pretty bipartisan. I guess stimmy checks is one of them. Stimmy checks would be a good example of this. Okay. But even then, that was like a necessity. Even Obamacare was like gutted and destroyed. It was supposed to have the public option, and they cooked it and they destroyed it and lied about it actively, as the Democratic Party did the classic move of like trying to find bipartisan compromise with a party that was not interested in compromising with them at all, and were getting rewarded for behaving in an obstructionist manner and lying about everything related to Obamacare in general. But the stimmy checks was a necessity, you know? It was a necessity. So my point is, I guess you could also say same-sex marriage, maybe. Was that? I mean, I guess that's another one. Fair. That's a good one. Okay. That's another good one. So the point is that the American government does not necessarily care about popular sentiment. You know what I mean? They just don't care. They don't really care at all. And I don't think that gay marriage was at the time seen as like a bipartisan thing that the entirety of the country wanted. If we're being real, if we're being really real. People are saying cannabis, but that's another great example. Like, this is federal level decriminalization of marijuana has been like 90% popular in perpetuity. Okay. Universal background checks, 90% popularity in perpetuity. 75% of NRA card carrying members want universal background checks. That would be a federal piece of legislation. So like, even when you think about all of the most popular policies, it's always just like, it's always something that the government has to neuter effectively. Okay. But I can give you a million examples of the government, whether it be the Supreme Court or whether it be the legislative body, actively working against the overwhelming majority's wishes time and time again, whether it be enforcing a ceasefire in Gaza by denying weapons transfers. Like, this was objectively a popular concept. Or even if the denying weapons transfers was not, even if that wasn't a popular part of this idea, okay, the ceasefire was a popular concept. And obviously, the only way to do that would be by forcing Israel to, concede. And if they didn't, you just refuse to give them weapons. They didn't do that. Okay. Universal health care, not happening. Like, there are plenty of popular things that can only pass through ballot measures on a state-by-state basis because the national parties don't actually care to do anything. They don't actually care to enforce the popular agenda of the people. Donald Trump, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily care about the overarching popular sentiment, and neither do the Democrats. But when Democrats actually do something that's like objectively unpopular, like, finding bipartisan compromise for the TikTok ban that the Democratic president signs into law, they're doing that at the behest of their corporate benefactors. Now, does Donald Trump do that as well? Of course. And he does it in even worse ways than the Democrats do, like the tax cuts for the super wealthy, right? that he passed in 2017, 2018. Having said that, every now and then, Donald Trump loves to get a good W in the corner. Okay? Donald Trump loves to get a good W in his corner. And that's what's going on here. Okay? That's what's happening here.
Was Tommy Tuberville, who once said rioters who broke in should, quote, pay the price, now says he fully backs Trump's call.
With Ross Ulbricht.
But we're talking about people that were beating officers with fire hydrants, with metal batons. Is that acceptable to you?
No.
Those people were pardoned.
No, that's not acceptable, but I didn't see it. So.
What do you mean?
It's on video. And of course, Trump, going back on his own words after the attack, he once said that those committed violent acts would pay the price, George.
So Scott, thanks very much. Let's also get a question about Pete Hegseth. He's the president's pick for defense secretary, facing new allegations now.
Yeah, senators on the Armed Services Committee, George, have obtained a sworn affidavit from the former sister-in-law of Pete Hegseth, who claims that he was abusive to his second wife, so much so that she had to hide in the closet and that they had a code word in case she needed help. Now, she does acknowledge that she never personally witnessed any sexual or physical abuse, and an attorney for Hegseth is denying these allegations, including those allegations of abuse, flat out. His nomination, though, is moving forward with the vote expected as early as this week, George.
Mr. Scott, thanks very much.
Said you guys back the blue. How do you justifiably say that when Trump just pardoned a bunch of violent January 6th rioters who attacked Capitol?
Like, this is, I'm going to be honest with you. On the one hand, this is a newsworthy thing that Donald Trump did. And it is kind of wild that he did blanket pardons. Okay. On the other hand, the media is back to doing hypocrisy baiting and hypocrisy fishing. And I think at a certain point, we all got to take a deep breath and recognize that, number one, January 6th stuff clearly doesn't play well to the broader audience, and they just don't care about it as much as liberals do, like hyper invested, media obsessed liberals do. Okay, and last but not least, and this is perhaps the most important point that I want to address. Okay, nobody cares about hypocrisy. Like, no Republican is ever going to turn around and be like, oh, man, you really caught me here. Donald Trump pardoned police beaters. Oh, I'm really going to reconsider my position here. It is not going to happen. You will never, ever, ever get a Republican to turn around and say, you know what? This is a bridge too far for me. If that was the case, then the Democrats would have won the last election, because this is what they ran on. Okay? This is what they ran on. They constantly ran on this, the January 6th stuff, over and over and over again. And I think it melted the minds of a lot of liberals who are basically just slammed to their televisions, like hyper focusing on what they see from the TV, and they just could not contend. Okay, they just could not comprehend the reality that, like, people outside of people that are watching MSNBC and CNN, that are like perma stuck in that little media ecosystem, an increasingly smaller audience of people, mind you. Outside of that, no one really cared about it. Okay. Police beaters is far from the truth, but you know that. Are you telling me that on January 6th, there weren't people who actually, one, pepper sprayed cops, and two, beat the shit out of cops? Because I'm not talking about like the cops that killed themselves a day after or whatever. I'm not talking about that at all. Okay. I'm talking about what I saw, like, on video. I was basically there, we were there, dude. Come on, dude. There's a lot of beat the shit out of, I disagree with, chatter. That's crazy. No, come on, dude. Come on. And that's insane. They just showed it in the tapes. Though you're going to make me, oh Lord, you're going to turn me into a silly little annoying little lib here. Okay. If you keep this up, we were basically at the Capitol, partially because all the people thought there would be no repercussions for this. So they filmed themselves and actively talked about how awesome it was that they were doing the things that they were doing. So we got deep access to everything that was going on. Part of the problem, from my perspective, I think, part of the problem was that there was so much footage readily available that it took thousands of man hours from the FBI to investigate all of that thoroughly, because everybody was like, what? We will never get in trouble for this. This is crazy. Why are you trying so hard to make the police as victims here? They are class traitors. Don't you know? Okay, shut up, Ismail. My point is, you can't even talk back to a cop in broad daylight in the normal world without possibly getting some criminal penalties for it. But you can apparently beat the shit out of a cop when you're storming the fucking Capitol, and it's fine. Trump will pardon you. Excuse me, I didn't know it was like that. Bro, in the United States of America, you can't even protest Israel, okay? You get 3,100 students were arrested for protesting against Israel's apartheid and genocide in this country under the Democratic leadership. Thousands more are permanently in jail for their participation in the Black Lives Matter protests. Thousands of people, okay? 1,000 plus people that were arrested, prosecuted, and went to jail for their participation in an insurrection where they did beat the shit out of cops, even though the cops were seemingly pretty much on their side, okay? And guess what? It's fine. You can do all of that. They were tactical love taps, bro. Chill. They were hitting the cops with respect and patriotism as they calmly enter the premises. Stop your revisionism. Yeah. That's crazy, man. Like, look at this, bro. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. I guess he just slipped and fell, dude, and nothing else, you know?
And if those rioters come to the Capitol, will you welcome them back here?
So look, everybody can describe this however they want. The president has the pardon and commutation authority. It's his decision, and I think what was made clear all along is that peaceful protests and people who engage in that should never be punished. There was a weaponization of the Justice Department. There was a weaponization of the events. The following, the prosecutions that happened after January 6th. It was a terrible time and a terrible chapter in America's history. The president's made his decision. I don't second guess those. And yes, it's kind of my ethos, my worldview. We believe in redemption. We believe in second chances. If you would argue that those people didn't pay a heavy penalty.
Bro, that's awesome. Like, they're talking like prison abolitionists right now, man. They're like, hey, man, we have to have a focus on rehabilitation rather than incarceration. I think it's been far too long in this nation's dark past where we have decided that that the draconian nature of the criminal justice system must be as torturous as possible. This is clearly not a successful method. These people have paid the ultimate price for being law-abiding, peaceful citizens as they peacefully beat the shit out of cops on the Capitol Rotunda. Okay? I wouldn't dare. But if I was, I wouldn't have liked it. But I've totally forgotten about it now because my Lord King Savior, Donald Trump, decided that they're going to get pardoned.
Having been incarcerated and all of that's up to you. But the president's made a decision. We move forward.
These guys will straight up say that, like, the overwhelming majority of Black Lives Matter protests did not turn into riots. The ones that did turn into riots because cops were brutalizing the protesters. Okay, they always escalate. And given the anti-cop nature of the Black Lives Matter protests, of course, cops were going to always escalate and be brutal. And they act like every city was burned to the goddamn ground. Meanwhile, these dudes straight up in broad daylight were like, we love rioting and going into we love rioting and going in to the Capitol building. Okay, we love it. I can't wait to apprehend physically and violently Nancy Pelosi and do a citizen's arrest on Nancy Pelosi. Here, I brought my zip ties with me. I can't wait to do that. My name is such and such. They've literally did this in broad daylight, and these guys are like, these were just peaceful people that wanted to see the inside of the people's house, right? I didn't realize that it was illegal for the people of the United States of America to enter the people's house.
There are better days ahead of us. That's what we're excited about. We're not looking backwards. We're looking forward. Just second row.
The leaders of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers were free following the pardons yesterday. At the time, back in 2021, you urged them to stand back and stand by. Is there now a place for them in the political conversation?
Well, we have to see they've been given a pardon. I thought.
Oh my God. Oh my God. This journalist basically is like, hey, are you going to utilize the Proud Boys to do your most violent bidding? And he's like, we'll see. We'll see.
Their sentences were ridiculous and excessive.
We'll have to see. Today, Tarrio spoke to Alex Jones and told him, quote, the people who did this, they need to feel the heat, they need to be put behind bars, and they need to be prosecuted. More now on all this from CNN's Donny O'Sullivan, who was outside the D.C. jail last night when all this went down and spoke today with some of the pardoned inmates.
You're a true patriot. I don't even know what to feel. I mean, I guess I should feel joy. Maybe I'm just shocked.
The end of a long road for Rachel Powell, pardoned by President Trump and released Tuesday from a jail here in Washington, D.C. Rachel
Patriots are in
became known
control.
as the Capitol with an ice axe during the January 6 attack. A mom to 8 and a grandmother to 7, I interviewed Rachel before she began what was supposed to be a years-long prison sentence last year.
How'd I have time to plan an insurrection when my life is busy like this?
On her release on Tuesday, she was met by activists who gave her new clothes, new boots, and a new pink hat.
Woo! Glory! Hallelujah! Thank you, Lord! This man came from the Philadelphia jail. He got out at 3 a.m. That doesn't make sense. He's wearing prison shoes and Philadelphia's finest prison gear.
Pardoned January 6ers from elsewhere began arriving in Washington, like William Patrick Sarsfield III, who was convicted of a felony offense of obstruction of law enforcement during a civil disorder.
Well, I was heard through different apps and different programs and different phone calls from people that we still had brothers and sisters that were still locked up and haven't been released. And being somebody that's been in D.C., that everybody should be released. If it's a pardon for J6ers, it's for all of us.
You got out of prison last night?
Well, I was locked up for 3.5 years, and I was taken to the halfway house on August 29th.
Robert Morse says he was released from a halfway house in Pittsburgh late last night and came to D.C. to celebrate.
Back up!
Morse, a former Army Ranger, was found guilty of assaulting police officers, among other crimes, on January 6.
I had no intention of going anywhere near the Capitol that day. That's how crazy this got. So a lot of people were taken advantage of, and we were lured into a lobster trap that January 6th was designed to be.
In terms of personal responsibility, do you regret?
Completely, without a doubt. I said that in my sentencing speech. I said the words, Donald Trump did not force me or coerce me to do what I did that day. I did it on my own accord.
What's your message to people watching this who say, she shouldn't have been pardoned, none of these people should have got out of prison, they're criminals?
Okay, you know what? It's time to stop worrying about that. And
Dude, that's the peak, okay? That's the most awesome way to be, to just be like, you don't understand, okay? No matter what, I will go to jail on my own. Please do not harm my president. Said I was bad right after it became politically unpopular. Like, dude, being that cucked is crazy. No, I'm not going to go back. There's no obligatory go back. You know, there's no go back policies here, okay? He called it a lobster trap and then proceeded to say how he fell for the lobster trap. Yeah. Attacking the seat. Yeah. Here's the latest standing. Attacking the seat of the U.S. government, beating the shit out of cops, saying you're going to arrest and possibly hang the Republican vice president of the party that you are a supporter of is peaceful. 18-year-olds camping and playing guitar on their own university campus. Worse terror attack than 9/11. They're all Hamas. They're all actually being brainwashed by the Iranian mullahs. Okay, the Ayatollah is basically on college campuses, and we have to bring in the terror squad. Incredible. Now, of course, make no mistake, these guys are also simultaneously Antifa. Okay, they're simultaneously agents of the FBI and Antifa at the same time, because initially they were like, oh, it's Antifa that did this. When they were like, oh, this is violent and unacceptable, and that's because Antifa did this. Okay? It's Antifa. Except they didn't prosecute the Antifa. They only prosecuted the brave patriots that were political prisoners. And also, it wasn't even violent at all. Okay? It wasn't even violent at all. It was just a peaceful day at the Rotunda.
move forward in this country.
And Donny joins us now. What's happening at the...
Are we doing hypocrisy baiting, or is this just entertainment? I don't know. I'm high. No. I come at this with the understanding that virtually no one cares about this. Like, the broad majorities of the American public are not as invested in the story as the way that the media presents it. It's just funny. It's entertainment. Okay? This is one of the least impactful aspects of the Trump administration. Okay? It's one of the least impactful aspects of the Trump administration. And it is, you know, it's not something that I think a lot of people truly care about, but the ones that do really care about it. Okay? The ones that care about January 6th really care about it. What I mean by this is, on the Republican side, the ones that are like the immediate family members, with the exception of the Hasanabi head, who has to now go into hiding because his dad is out of prison. The Republicans that really care about it are elated. They're super excited that Trump actually pardoned these guys and emboldened them. Okay. On the liberal side, the ones who care about it really care about it as well. But the number of people, especially on the liberal side, that really care about this are obviously super marginal. And even if they respond to a poll and they say like, oh, I think this is like really disrespectful or whatever, it ultimately does not matter, because the American government, you know, Democratic control, Republican control, doesn't really matter. The American government doesn't really do things that people have a lot of negative feelings about anyway, a lot of positive feelings about anyway. Like, the American government doesn't really abide by the democratic wishes of the broad majorities of the public, right?
The jail tonight, what are you seeing?
Anderson, yeah, just in the past few minutes, 3 more January 6ers were just released.
I think it's pretty impactful to essentially give Americans immunity for any crimes in the name of the president, right? No, that will have really important implications down the line, for sure. I think that especially when you factor in like organized militias that have only grown in size and influence in the time frame that these guys went to jail, it definitely is a terrifying precedent later down the line. But that's usually not what people are talking about in this situation. Most people are just looking at this and talking about how hypocritical it is that Trump is doing this, myself included. But make no mistake, I'm just, you know, I'm talking about it from the aspect of like entertainment and hogwatch, and the hypocrisy baiting is not like the major point that I'm trying to address here at all.
From the DC jail here, you can see they're giving interviews to local media and international.
Yeah. I also want to once again address the broader point here, which is that you cannot try to catch Republicans in hypocrisy. It didn't work the last election cycle, and it didn't work the election cycle in the past as well. Like, when Trump was president, this is all liberals did, okay? This is all the hashtag resistance liberalism was about. Oh, now we think it's okay when Trump does it. It's like, yeah, no, they just genuinely don't care, and they genuinely do think it's okay when Trump does it, and they will act like they care when the Democrats actually do something that comes across as hypocritical. It's the strategy. It's the game plan. If anything, I think liberals should learn from that. This is something that I have advocated for quite a bit. Most famously on the Pod Save America interview that I had that went viral in a lot of liberal circles, where I said, I want the Democrats to fight. I want a competent Democratic Party that is willing to fight, okay? Willing to fight for good things. Willing to fight for the common good, even if it doesn't come across as inherently popular or immediately popular. And I want them to expend social and political capital on things that actually do materially improve people's lives. Okay? I want them to do that in the same way that Trump does, right? Because Trump does that. This is one of the things that I wouldn't say necessarily admire about Donald Trump, but this is one of the things that I think Donald Trump does very well. If there is something that he can get an easy W off of, okay? If there's something that will return, like if there are a group of people out there that are genuinely passionate about a particular issue, even if it's like, you know, kind of unpopular or whatever in the eyes of the broad majority, like these are low-hanging fruit things for him. He just will go and you know, he'll secure those votes. This is one of those instances. He also will he also has obviously a tendency to be very telegenic and knows how to draw in a crowd and make people pay attention to him. And he did precisely that with his executive order signatures that he conducted on his first day, right? On the day of the inauguration. Like, he knows how to keep people, paying attention to what he's doing and present it as a positive. It's one of the, I would say, worst aspects of the Joe Biden administration was the fact that it was led by a guy who was a crippled old man who genuinely couldn't do that. He could not even actively communicate some of the good things that they were doing, albeit marginal, but they still could have done a better job of conveying that message to the public, to be like, see, these are the things that we're doing. Donald Trump is a great marketer. Problem is, the things he's marketing are usually very bad, right? Why is Charlie Kirk such a Trump cock gobbler on Twitter? It's insufferable. There's no analysis, just dick riding at the likes the world has never seen before. I mean, come on, dude. Let him do his victory dances, you know? They won, and he played a big role in it, you know? This guy actively was door knocking in Arizona. He is in Trump's orbit. That's his job. His job is to gobble Trump's penis. So, legitimate question. Legally, doesn't that mean that storming the Capitol should be legal as a takeaway here? No, dude, it doesn't work that way. That is actually what I was trying to explain with the hypocrisy here, which is that both the hypocrisy baiting from liberals don't work, and that Donald Trump actually making it functionally legal to storm the Capitol, that doesn't apply to you, okay? If you tried to do that, you would get killed. Do you understand? If you try to do that, you get killed. When Republicans tried to do that, they basically walked in, cops basically led them in, and got their ass beat in the process, and then Trump came back and pardoned all of them. But that doesn't extend to you, is my point. This is why whenever liberals talk about like, oh, if we violate these norms, then the Republicans will violate it down the line. My response always has been, hello, they already do violate all the norms. What are you talking about? The only precedent that this is setting is that as long as you do it at the behest of Trump, you'll be protected from legal scrutiny. That's it. It doesn't work for you. It doesn't work in the opposite direction. Okay? Yeah, apparently a lot of people are losing their minds over the church service that took place, and I think is really funny, so I will obviously cover that as well. The difference is Democrats will say things like, oh no, Trump revoked XYZ Act instead of saying Trump had defunded your bridges and roads. Yep.
Press also gathered, but also a lot of MAGA media here. And one person who's just speaking over there, who I think we're showing on screen at the moment, is Jake Lang. He's a prisoner who has really built up a big social media following while he has been in prison over the past while. He's speaking there. So really, you can see just how emboldened these folks are. A lot of them are kind of going off and planning basically MAGA media careers. But what we've also seen here over the past few hours today is different groups and people, obviously big fans of us here, Anderson, groups gathering throughout the day, including the Proud Boys here. So really gives you a sense of the types of folks who are celebrating, at least here at the DC jail.
All right, Tony O'Sullivan, appreciate it.
Many of the president's allies would like to stop talking about the deadly assault on the Capitol, but Trump's sweeping pardons making that difficult, as the president himself was pressed by reporters on the issue when he spoke to them yesterday.
Aren't you sending the message that assaulting officers is okay with these pardons?
No, the opposite. You know, I am the friend of police more than any president that's ever been in this office.
Donald Trump insisting that despite his decision to pardon hundreds of people convicted of violent felonies and a power that he alone wields, insisting he supports law enforcement more than any president ever. When asked about specific cases, including that of Metropolitan Police Officer Michael Fanone, who was attacked and injured while defending the Capitol 4 years ago, the president seemed to be unaware of the details of the convictions that he chose to wipe away.
You would agree that it's never acceptable to assault a police officer,
Sure.
right? So then if I can, among those you pardoned, DJ Rodriguez, he drove a stun gun into the neck of a DC police officer who was abducted by the mob that day. He later confessed on video to the FBI and pleaded guilty for his crimes. Why does he deserve a pardon?
Well, I don't know. Was it a pardon? Because we're looking at commutes and we're looking at pardons. Okay, well, we'll take a look at everything.
Was it a pardon, he asks? Yes, one that only he has the power to deliver. Joining us now, Stephen Collinson, CNN senior politics reporter, Elliot Williams, CNN legal analyst, a former federal prosecutor, Congressman Jake Auchincloss, Democrat of Maryland, Massachusetts, and Kristen Soltis Anderson, CNN political commentator and Republican strategist and pollster. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. Congressman, this, of course, a return to the original first Trump administration, where members of the body in which you serve often repeatedly asked to defend what Donald Trump has done. This, what happened on January 6th, was something that was an absolute cataclysm for the institution. Many of your colleagues were trapped in the House chamber, had to be escorted out by law enforcement as rioters tried to breach the doors. What do you have to say to your colleagues there, as some of them are trying, not all of them are defending what Trump has done, but what goes through your mind when you watch that?
Congressional Republicans are all ducking and dodging, and I never want to hear them say back the blue ever again after providing political cover for this abomination. These are people who violently assaulted officers of the law while trying to insurrect our democracy. It's not just these pardons, by the way. Last Congress, the Republicans tried to defund the FBI. This term, they're seeking to undermine the ATF's ability to regulate ghost guns. These are weapons that can pass through a metal detector without being detected. All of these things make officers of the law less safe and undermine our ability to enforce the law in this country. And yet they try to claim that they're the law and order party. It's no longer supportable.
Dude, this is, you know what this reminds me of? You know what this reminds me of before we move on to some other stuff here? This reminds me of the endless need for the Democratic Party to run patriotic candidates. Okay? Like, this reminds me of when Donald Trump came out and was like, John McCain is a loser. I like my war heroes who weren't captured. And everyone was like, this is surely going to take him down. Last time Trump won the election, if you remember. And the Democrats were like, finally, we can be the patriotic party. Okay? Finally, let's keep running the most boring, annoying, technocratic, smarmy veterans and try to maintain this position that in the South, we are the actual party that cares about patriotism. Look at all our veterans that we're posting. Look at all our veterans that we're putting forward. Not realizing that no one cares, okay? No one cares. And this is what the Democrats have always done. They've always done this. And now they think they're going to be like, well, it's obvious that the Republicans are not the law and order party. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? They don't care, man. I don't know how to describe this to you. You cannot outflank the Republicans on patriotism. They own it, okay? It's not in the United States of America. The collective consciousness surrounding patriotism is not what you think it is, okay? It's not what you think it is. Patriotism in America is not represented by, actually respecting the veterans and showing reverence or whatever. It's actually about how racist you can be about Muslim people or whoever America's enemies are at that time. Okay? It is completely and entirely dominated by the right wing. They control that narrative. They control the standards of patriotism. If you think that you have any say in reframing patriotism from a liberal perspective, you are delusional. Okay? It's almost as delusional as thinking that people care about the civility and the optics of it all. No one cares. It's almost as delusional as thinking that the incredibly divisive and sectarian nature of simply hyper focusing on identity markers as a mechanism of undermining progressive people within the ranks of your own party. Just a major own. No one cares. Okay? Republicans do it all the time too. No one actually cares. Like the cancel culture stuff is just so stupid. Hyper focusing on that and thinking that this is a reasonable way to do politics is so bad. It just makes you look like a freaking HR manager. Okay? It's so dumb. Just do things that help people. Please, for the love of Christ, do things that help people. And actively talk about how you're doing those things and market them. But it seems like the Democratic Party has decided, no, we're just going to be the gay, smarmy version of the Republicans. Okay? That's it. Ugh. You will never be able to You will never be able to decouple reactionary right-wing politics from law and order messaging, okay? It does not matter, because the entirety of the right-wing messaging is about dominating the field of law and order in the way that they think is law and order. The same goes for free speech, okay? When Americans talk about free speech, the way that they understand free speech is basically when Americans talk about free speech, they're talking about slurs, being able to say slurs and not having any repercussions for being able to say slurs. They're not talking about actual speech that undermines the pre-existing hierarchies. They're not talking about free speech as like saying, you know, Israel sucks or whatever. They're talking about the freedom to say slurs without repercussions. That's the way that they talk about free speech. And it's not about the government actually coming in and offering legal penalties for you saying whatever. It's actually just private companies and private organizations not deboosting you or shadow banning you or whatever people believe is happening. Okay? That's what this is about. And there is no greater indication of this inherent like silliness, okay, than the way that Marco Rubio and many other Republicans have talked about what they're going to do, what their mandate is going forward. On the one hand, as the leaked State Department memo that came out from Ken Klippenstein that we covered yesterday, Marco Rubio said they're going to go after DEI, okay? One of the scariest things that Marco Rubio also mentioned was in the bullet points in the memo that he was sending to the State Department, okay? The new Secretary of State that was voted in unanimously, including by the likes of Bernard Sanders, by the way, big L for Bernard there, was that he was going to combat anyone that tries to dare tarnish free speech, but also simultaneously go after people for un-American sentiment. Those two things are, if you understand the theoretical concept of what free speech represents, those two things are inherently at odds with one another. You can't on the one hand say, we are going to be the defenders of the free speech, and then simultaneously say, and we're going to make sure that people are adequately punished for supporting terrorism or for, not being in line with American values and common sense. That means you're going to go after speech. That's what that means. But that is precisely the way that they're going to go about this, where they're just being like, we're the free speech defenders, and also simultaneously, we are going to take out any kind of political opposition.
The President Donald Trump's immigration.
Anyway, but, one funny moment from the pardoned January 6 rioters is that one of them already got arrested on gun charges. Trump granted clemency to hundreds of alleged or convicted violent criminals. One is back behind bars because a man accused of assaulting a law enforcement officer and tossing an explosive device into a Capitol tunnel on January 6 was rearrested just days after receiving a pardon. His name is Daniel Ball of Homosassa, Florida. That's an awesome name. Homosassa, Florida. On May 2023, was indicted on 12 counts related to his participation in the attack on the Capitol. Charges against him included assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers with a deadly or dangerous weapon, using fire and explosive to commit any felony, and knowingly engaging in any act of physical violence while carrying or using a deadly or dangerous weapon. Okay? Ball was accused of throwing an explosive device that detonated upon at least 25 officers in the Capitol's Lower West Terrace tunnel, injuring law enforcement personnel. On Tuesday, Ball's case was dismissed following President Trump's blanket pardon to over 1,500 defendants charged with offenses related to the attempted insurrection. Less than a day later, the Department of Justice rearrested Ball on a separate pending charge related to the unlawful possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. This sassy-ass homo is going back to jail, baby. Homo Sassy's very own. He couldn't make it. He couldn't make it out in the real world, chat. He's done. January 6th was nowhere near Ball's first brush with law enforcement. 3 previous felony convictions, including 4 domestic violence, battery by strangulation, resisting law enforcement with violence, and battery against a law enforcement officer, are listed in the charging documents. While Ball was nabbed on a pending charge unrelated to January 6th, the president's widespread amnesty for January 6 offenders let hundreds of individuals charged or convicted of violence during the attack off the hook. Look at that. Ball, any relation to LaMelo? Yeah, this is the lost Ball brother. That's what happened. Can liberals not concede just once? I hate Marco Rubio on a personal. I mean, he has a globe emoji on his account. Of course, he's going to say he likes Marco Rubio. He's doing the thing that I said he was going to do. He's doing the thing that I said liberals were going to say, which is that Marco Rubio is far from the worst option as the Secretary of State because he's a competent, pro-American empire person with a long-standing track record within Congress. He is an establishment elite politician. So, of course, Democrats are perfectly on board with this. They could have had someone like Tulsi Gabbard be the Secretary of State. You know, that's the calculation that they're making. I hate Marco Rubio on a personal and policy level, but he's a perfectly acceptable Secretary of State nomination for a Republican president. No reason for Senate Dems to die on that hill when there's a whole mountain range of terrible nominees. There it is. Yes, this is the constant conciliatory calculation that liberals engage with. First of all, Homosassa is a native name like Mikasuki. Yeah, I suspected. I want to explain something here. Democrats, as a party, regardless of, my disagreements with them, should operate like the Republicans. And what that means is you should just block regardless. You should block and push regardless. What are you doing? It literally does not matter. In this day and age, obstructionism is not actually something that comes along with a penalty. It comes with rewards. Obviously, that's what the Republicans have proven time and time again. Just fucking obstruct. Who cares? It takes $0 to be annoying and obstruct. It doesn't make any sense. Just obstruct and craft a reasonable narrative as to why you're doing so. Because Republicans operate as though every Democratic leadership is supposed to hire Republicans for these positions, and they do obstruct on that basis. Whereas the Democrats don't do that. The Democrats are like, well, let's be the adults here. This is a reasonable calculation that we're making. Marco Rubio is far more sane than the other candidates, and there's truth to that. There is truth to that. But just obstruct. Who cares? Who cares? Unless you personally also like Marco Rubio to be in that position. And many Democrats do like Marco Rubio in that position, for the record. But Republicans, on the other hand, even if they actually like a Democratic candidate who might even be a Republican or might be incredibly conservative, will still obstruct because they understand how partisan politics works in this country. You should not be operating on the standard that he's better overall and that we must be adults, please. You should be operating on the standard of fuck the Republicans. Fuck them. Okay? Fuck them. And I don't mean literally have sex with them, because many Democrats want to do that. They want to get their backs blown out by the Republican Party in general. Okay? It's very frustrating. Very, very, very frustrating. Okay? I mean, fuck them. No, we're not doing anything. Even if you like a guy, even if they turn around and actually put forth a Democrat in a position of power, you should be like, nah, we don't want it. We're going to obstruct anyway. That's what the Republicans do. But if they obstruct and somehow Republicans place someone worse, then what? Wait, what a great question. First of all, it doesn't matter. Marco Rubio was going to pass regardless whether they obstruct or not. Why are you aesthetically offering a victory of hollow bipartisanship to the Republican Party for no reason? What do you mean, a worse person? Okay, obstruct that too. If you have the capacity to obstruct Marco Rubio, you have the capacity to obstruct against whoever the other candidates are too. What are you talking about? Pop Crave is doing better anti-Trump work than the Democratic Party. Yeah. Donald Trump is now allowing ICE agents to make arrests in and near schools and churches, by the way, which was previously a bridge too far. If you recall, there was famous stories of undocumented migrants sheltering inside of a church in order to avoid ICE raids. They remember that. And so this time around, they're like, nope, you're going into schools and churches too, and medical places as well, hospitals. It was just a question. I am not a meritard. My bad. No, I wasn't being no, it was just a question, dude. I am not a meritard. What the fuck? I have not heard this term before. I wasn't even mad at you. I'm just heated in general. Sorry if it came across like I was yelling at you. I'm just yelling, chatter. Oh, by the way, here's Trump ally Charlie Kirk going on an unhinged rant about Martin Luther King again.
In our piece that Kirk describes King as, quote, a bad guy. It's true. And Kirk's self-described very, very radical view that the country made a mistake when it passed the Civil Rights Act. Also true. As we note in the piece, Kirk has previously described Kirk as a hero and a civil rights icon. It's true. I used to be wrong. What inspired Kirk to shift his view on MLK? Why does Kirk think that MLK is a bad guy? When Kirk says that MLK says, quote, one good thing he didn't believe, what does he mean by that? Why does Kirk believe passing the Civil Rights Act was a mistake? Now, again, apparently they don't listen to the show because we do that at least once a week, right? Once a week we talk about why the Civil Rights Act was a mistake.
That's an insane... Dude, that is insane, dude. You called this? Look at how much anti-Semitism is in the replies. Ha ha ha, holy fuck. TikTok must have got an APAC guy. I guess it swung the other way, and that's why it's back. What do you mean? Your thoughts on this? I guess people should use red now. Oh, look, it's Eastern Standard Time again. Maybe I was wrong about TikTok. Seems based. No, most of the people are just like dunking on the stupid liberals who are pro-Palestine. Tim Pool is not necessary. Tim Pool will entertain anti-Semitic conspiracies, but he's not exactly a supporter of Palestine or even a critic of Israel. I don't know if you guys have realized that. He actually is pro-Israel, and that's kind of a heated point of contention in his community as well, because like his fan base, some of his fans are obviously anti-Israel for, you know, sometimes good reasons and in many instances bad reasons. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. So this is not surprising that most of the people are just going, yeah, this kind of censorship is awesome, actually. Yeah. What is this? Radlibs have gone dangerously close to anti-MLK takes. What is this? Wasn't MLK assassinated in a motel room during an orgy with white prostitutes? Are we pleased? No. Stop. I'm not entertaining that shit, okay? I'm not even remotely entertaining. Dude, I've done this already. I've had a foray into this before. Stop. Okay? It's crazy to me that Leah Banks is doing the propaganda that the FBI tried to do. Like, that's crazy, man. Radical liberalism is so brain rot. Also, Azealia Banks is like insane. Please stop. She has no motion. Please don't do that. Oh, yeah, there's this part that I'm going to talk about today as well. Breaking. Donald Trump has ordered communications blackout on America's federal health agencies per Washington Post. The CDC, FDA, HHS, and NIH have all been told to pause external communications, including publishing scientific reports, updating websites, or issuing health advisories. One of them was supposed to be about the potential bird flu. Okay, that's kind of been ripping through the poultry and egg supply, for the record. Yeah. Good thing that we don't need to know about that. Yeah. How the U.S. lost control of bird flu, setting the stage for another pandemic. As the bird flu virus moved on to cows and people, sluggish federal action, deference to industry, and neglect for worker safety put the country at risk. Yeah. Plandemic 2, baby. It's a double whammy. It's a double whammy because this also actually contributes to the cost of living crisis. Okay? It actually contributes to the cost of living crisis as well, because if you rip through the poultry or even the meat stock in general, like beef stock as well, because it's like skipping in, it's actually made its way into the cows as well. It's not only devastating for the population if it jumps to humans, but it also is devastating in general because it basically cooks the existing poultry stock and egg stock. Now, that will increase the prices for eggs. It'll increase the price for chicken. Having said that, okay, it's great because not only will the federal government be ill-equipped to deal with this now, even worse than under the Brandon regime, but also now the FDA might not actually, you know, in an effort to keep up with the demands of the people that want to eat chicken and eat eggs, maybe the FDA will be forced to look the other way. Maybe the FDA will be forced to look the other way in terms of bird flu ripping through the population by way of the chickens that they're eating, by way of the eggs that they're consuming. I don't know. Great stuff. But hey, fear not. We have the World Health Organization that can help. Oh, shit. Damn it. Yeah. From the people that brought you no vaccine mandates will now come mandated holistic medicine for your bird flu as you're dying. RFK Jr. will come visit you and give you and shove colloidal silver pills down your throat to save your life. Your fault eating pig ass full of antibiotics and other fun shit. Lamau, enjoy your disease, meat eaters. Yeah. Famously, bird flu jumping over to humans and having an incredibly high lethality rate will never actually end up impacting vegans. So, yeah. Dude, everything goes back to why the fire department has to be a social service that's publicly funded. You understand? There is a reason why a lot of this stuff that we're talking about is controlled by the federal government. There's a reason why the fire department has to be local and public as a public service. You understand? Because fire skips. And you know what else skips? Diseases. Okay? They fire jumps from house to house, structure to structure, burning everything in its everything and anything in its way. Okay? Just like diseases don't care if you're vegan or not. Also, anyway, I'm not even going to get into it. Dude, it's legit about to be 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Yeah. I'm not like a super genius Hassan, but I think the point the chatter was making might have been that if more people go vegan, there will be less reliance on meat consumption, which would help not exacerbate the issue. Okay, dude. Yeah, you're right. That's what we should have done. We should have just like magically got people to be on board with this. Please stop. I don't want to get into this. Vegans are right. Vegans are morally right. I'm a morally repugnant person who can't control himself, and I still love consuming animal products. Let's just not get into it, please. I'm not going to do a vegan debate right now in the midst of like the Burger Reich. Okay? Please, eyes on the prize, okay? One of the things that I've always consistently been an advocate for also is like, one, making the meat production and poultry production more ethical as you possibly can, and greatly limiting it by the federal regulatory agencies, while also simultaneously looking for and investing greatly in alternative non-meat substitutes that taste and look and feel exactly like the meat products. This is a thing that I advocate for all the time because I understand that these kinds of changes can only happen at the systemic level, and it's not going to work in a decentralized movement, okay? Especially in a country like the United States of America where treats are supreme. We care about treats more than anything else, okay? One of the most popular ways in which people have actually criticized the Green New Deal has been the false association with AOC trying to take your burger away. Americans are cheeseburger people. They're hamburger people. And even the fake lie that your hamburgers are going to be taken away created so much controversy for a bill that actually wasn't going to do that anyway. Okay. Anyway, hamburger. U.S. military orders. I digress. Let's get back to the issue at hand. U.S. military orders thousands more troops to the southern border.
Policies go into effect. Officials tell CNN that the U.S. military is sending thousands of additional troops to the southern U.S. border. This comes just 2 days after President Trump ordered the military to step up its presence there. About 2,200 active duty forces are already at the border as part of Joint Task Force North. They're mostly performing support roles for Customs and Border Patrol. Officials say the new arrivals will be doing much of the same, as they're not authorized to perform any sort of law enforcement role. Let's bring in Natasha Bertrand, who's at the Pentagon for us. So Natasha, what more do we know at this point?
Yeah, Zane, so we know at this point that the U.S. military is ordering thousands of additional active duty troops to the border to augment Customs and Border Patrol activities and mission operations down there. But they're not going to be engaged in any kind of law enforcement role, because that is actually banned by a centuries-old law called Posse Comitatus, which prevents the U.S. military from being used domestically for law enforcement purposes. So they're primarily going to be, doing things like data entry, transportation of migrants around different facilities, intelligence support, as well as some additional support in air operations. But they're not going to be engaging extensively.
I know you're talking about a different topic, but at some point I think it's important to touch on the Southern halt on federal funding's agency communications that has basically put a stop on the proceedings to provide funding for scientific research. Multiple research study panels have been suddenly canceled due to the executive orders recently passed. Also, all EDI initiatives have been wiped from the funding agency websites. What is EDI initiatives? Is that a different way of saying DEI? I know that, yeah, they're taking out DEI. They're taking it out back and killing it
in the day-to-day with migrants. But still, this is significant because it does make good on President Trump's promise just earlier this week that he is going to augment the presence of the U.S. military at.
They're taking away electronic data interchange. What is, I don't know what that. I don't know what you're talking about.
The border. Now, as you said, there are roughly 2,200 active duty troops already at the border, and they are supported by Texas National Guard contingent there. And so what this is going to do is essentially lay the groundwork, we're told, for an even bigger military footprint to be sent in the coming weeks and months to the border. This is not, something that the president can, just in terms of ordering them to engage in law enforcement functions. This is something that the president has the authority to do under the Insurrection Act. And he has said, in an executive order issued Monday, that if within 90 days he and the Secretary of Defense determine that the border is not under control and that more resources need to be used to control the flow of migrants across the border, then he can invoke the Insurrection Act, which would then allow the U.S. military to perform those law enforcement functions like arrests, searches, and seizures, as well as seizing drugs. And so this is something that we need to watch for. But for now, this is really just President Trump and the Department of Defense making good on their promise to augment, Customs and Border Patrol, as well as DHS more broadly, their resources at the southern border, as they have been stretched thin in recent years with the ongoing flow of migrants across the U.S.-Mexico border. Zane.
All right, Natasha Bertrand, live for us there. Thank you so much. All right, Donald Trump's new border czar says that deportation operations have actually already begun. Tom Homan told Fox News earlier that ICE agents arrested 308 serious criminals in the past 24 hours. The president says that ICE agents can now make arrests at churches and at schools, which were previously considered off limits because they are sensitive places. Julius Vargas Jones joins us live now from the U.S.-Mexican border in California, which is, of course, ground zero for the immigration battle. So, Julia, just the fact that these raids, this rounding up of undocumented immigrants, these arrests have actually already begun. Just talk us through what the reaction is where you are, especially because California is a sanctuary state.
Yeah, exactly, Zane. Look, people are scared. We're talking to folks who are saying it's fear and uncertainty. That's what's being brought here, both for people who are in the...
By the way, did you see IG automatically following JD Vance from people's accounts without them knowing? I thought it was BS, but then I looked it up and had a few people I know who had never followed him on mutuals list. No, dude, it's because JD Vance's account swaps over, just like on Twitter. You were following at VP when it was Kamala Harris or something, most likely. And then that happens with every administration. If you were following the vice presidential account, thinking you were following Kamala Harris, it swapped over to JD Vance. I mean, look, I don't know. Maybe Meta is doing that. Maybe Meta is also forcing people to follow the VP account or something. And I wouldn't put it past them at all. But I think a lot of this stuff is, POTUS account or VP accounts that people follow, and a lot of the... What is this? No, it refollows you. It's new, not the old one. Supposedly, even if you 100% were not following the VP or POTUS accounts, they make you follow them. Let's take a look. I don't even know if I follow the VP or POTUS accounts, if we're being real. But let's see. I'm not following the VP account. Instagram has not made me follow the POTUS account, nor has it made me follow the VP account. This is the Meta spokesperson's statement. People were not made to automatically follow any of the official Facebook or Instagram accounts for the president, vice president, and first lady. Those accounts are managed by the White House. So with the new administration, the content on those pages changes. This is the same procedure we followed during the last presidential transition. It may take some time for follow and unfollow requests to go through as these accounts change hands. Now look at Donald Trump and JD Vance. I might have actually already followed Donald Trump, but I definitely wasn't following JD Vance. And I'm still not following JD Vance. Was Donald Trump real Donald Trump? I guess I wasn't following Donald Trump either. What is it? It's a brand new account? Yeah, I'm saying that Meta might have a policy in place where they auto-follow the new POTUS account, okay, and the previous account turns into an archive account. Like, so you automatically now auto-follow the brand new account, unless it's an account that gets wiped. I don't know. I don't know how it works, but I could see it being two different things. We're going to talk about the DEI stuff in a second. Let's continue with
immigration
this.
system. So folks who are already in the process, who have a piece of paper saying that says that they can stay in the United States through their immigration process, they are quite fearful at this point because they don't know what will happen. There's just been so many changes. And yes, California is a sanctuary state. It's also home to dozens of sanctuary cities. But at this point, people don't know, and officials here don't know. People who work with migrants don't know what will come of this. There's just been too much so quickly. We spoke yesterday with a family from Venezuela who came over and who said, look, yes, we got our appointment for asylum. We had our initial interview, but we don't know if this program will even be standing by the time that we get to the end of this process. And another thing that happened that I think is important to note is that these organizations along here, the southern border and in California, who have been working in partnership with federal authorities like Catholic Charities, which we visited yesterday, and we spoke with the CEO, who told us, look, they're saying they're not going to release migrants to our care any longer. So it raises a lot of questions of what will happen to these people. He said to us, they've since 2021, once the Remain in Mexico policy was lifted and migrants started to be able to stay in the United States while they waited for their date in court, they have been key to helping about 400,000 people to get on their way in the United States to make it to their date in court. And now where will they go? Will they be held in detention centers here in the United States? Will they be dropped off in these cities across the U.S. border to be on their own, or will they be told to stay in Mexico? All of this just adding to the uncertainty, Zane, that we're feeling here at the U.S.-Mexico border.
President Donald Trump's promise of mass deportations in the U.S. is causing panic and anxiety among immigrant communities. His administration issuing new directives, including one that allows immigration authorities to arrest people near and inside places previously considered off limits, and that includes schools and churches. CNN's Ed Lavandera visited one Texas city that's now preparing for raids.
Good morning, Cactus Elementary! Every school day at Cactus Elementary starts like this. Moments of patriotism and reflection with a high-energy dose of inspiration from Principal T.J. Funderburg. Why are we here? You do that every morning?
Yes, sir.
When I looked out on the student body this morning, I mean, it's quite something to think that we're in the Texas Panhandle, and that's what your student body looks like.
It's always very eye-opening to people that come here. We've got 13, 14 different languages, all these different cultures represented. And yeah, we're up here in the heart of the Texas Panhandle. Everybody think it'd be farm and ranching country and kids in cowboy hats, and we've got just about a little bit of everything.
The population in Cactus, Texas is about 3,000 people, but the diversity is staggering. There's an African restaurant, safari restaurant and halal meat. There's an Asian grocery store. There's a Mexican butcher shop. There's a Guatemalan grocery. There's also an Islamic center. What draws so many immigrants and migrants here to a community like this is the work, and it is brutal, back-breaking work. There is a meat processing plant that runs 24 hours a day. There are dairy farms that run nonstop.
You got to mention it 3 minute on Will Minnicker's episode of Doom Scroll. We'll look at this later.
These are the kinds of jobs that the United States economy and food supply rely on.
That's crazy, man. It's like the humanization of migrants, specifically migrant workers, that are the backbone of American produce, American agribusiness, and many other sectors, okay, who are hyper exploited, and their workplace conditions should be brought up to the standards of documented labor forces. It almost feels like these pieces could have been consistently talked about since, I don't know, February of 2021, when Joe Biden was the president and had promised that in his first 100 days, he was going to do wide sweeping legislation in terms of offering amnesty to a lot of these people that have been in the country for extended periods of time, for example. All this stuff that Biden ran on and was very, and definitely all these things that were definitely very popular was cast aside in the first month of the administration. And it's not an afterthought. It's not hindsight to say that it would have been devastating. It was going to become much worse. The situation was going to become much more dire if they didn't actively communicate that these people are just regular old people, okay? Just like anybody else, and in much worse conditions in general. If only this kind of framing could have been brought in by mainstream media and pushed for by the Democratic Party in general. Now, before people say, Hassan, hindsight is 2020, it wasn't hindsight in the month of February when I was saying this, routinely warning the incoming administration that if they don't do this, okay, if they don't do this at all, if the Democrats don't actually put a front-facing pro-immigrant agenda, that inevitably Republicans would captivate the population with no counterbalance and would completely dominate the messaging on the issue of immigration. I said this in February of 2021 when right out of the gates, one of the first things the Customs and Border Patrol did under the Brandon regime was like whip Haitian migrants, okay, with their reins on horseback, invoking some of the darkest chapters of American history. Okay. And I'm sure, I mean, someone can link this. Someone can link the video. I've done so many throughout the entire administration. That wasn't Brandon. That was the Texas sheriff's dude. It was still under the watchful gaze of the Joe Biden Democratic administration. And it was entirely against his first 100 days agenda. Please, someone sent me that video. I don't know where Little Bear is, but I need to show it to you just so you understand where I was at in my commentary all the way back then and where we arrived at. So let's circle right on the Gen Pacific. Imagine, dude. Oh my God. Every show would be like, this isn't what I'm looking for specifically. This is not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is my commentary on immigration. There's a video that we always go back to, that we always post in the chat. Not AI voice? Yes, real voice. Okay. Little Bear came in clutch as always. This border crisis narrative is incredibly annoying from the media, by the way. They are absolutely feeding into this. And they're going to cause the Democrats to behave in a totally, even in a more reactionary way than they were already going to behave. It is so incredibly manufactured. There's always been a crisis at the border. When there are humanitarian problems occurring at the border as a consequence of the conditions there, 120 degrees they have to traverse in the desert, all that sort of stuff. And then also the American government adding on to the cruelty with the way that they choose to deal with people that are crossing the border, that are seeking asylum. There is an extra crisis on the border. There's always a crisis on the border. It's never stopped. This is from March 15th, 2021. The problem is the way media covers it. You can either cover it like you do under the Trump administration, which is somewhat honestly, from a moral grandstand point of view, like an actual honest point of view, by saying this is really messed up, this is really horrible, the way that we are treating these people is absolutely ridiculous. Or you can treat it in a way where you look at the border and you say, there's a gigantic crisis happening in the border currently, and it's really bad because so many people are coming in. So many people are coming in. What are we going to do? Depending on who is in charge, we either deal with it from the point of view of reactionary garbage, claiming that this is a huge issue, not taking an actual stance on it, but just simply channeling the right-wing agitation as they have done, just covering it as, many Americans are concerned that the border is turning into a pylon with hundreds of thousands of migrants coming in through the floodgates. Like, that's no different than what Fox News says. No different than what Fox News says. Yeah. Just like that, administration changes hands and CNN starts humanizing migrants. And the problem here is that the media is going to be antagonistic because they want to drive clicks. The media is going to behave in a reactionary manner. Okay? They straight up turned around and started covering the border crisis as not like something incredibly violent that the Republican Party was pushing for and the apprehension methods that were scary. But as soon as Joe Biden took over the reins, they were like, oh, there's a massive crisis. Joe Biden is letting in migrants by the millions. This is unacceptable. Okay? And at the time I said, if the Biden administration if the Biden administration doesn't actively communicate alongside the popular mandate that they got from the election that they just won, okay, once in office, if they don't actively communicate the humanity of migrants, the Republicans are going to dominate this. The Republicans are going to dominate the conversation and just lie about it. And that's precisely what they did for 4 years. They kept hitting that button over and over again. It's not an accident that every time there is a general election or anytime there is a midterm election, that suspiciously there are caravans abound. Okay? Caravans, they're coming. You think there's only caravans coming every time an election is about to happen? Doesn't that kind of strike you as odd? It's the one thing that the Republicans love talking about all the time, is that migrants are coming in and they're coming here to do crimes. They're coming here to rape your daughters. They're coming here to steal your jobs, but also simultaneously steal your welfare and also simultaneously steal your properties that you could rent. Okay? So if I can figure this out and I'm some random Twitch streamer, how can the Democratic Party not recognize that this is what was going to happen? How? That's bad politics, and it should not be rewarded. Republicans never stop. Republicans never, ever stop doing propaganda year round. They never stop campaigning. Okay? Democrats, on the other hand, barely do a decent job of campaigning to begin with. They don't. They're actually bad at campaigning, and they only do it every 4 years or every 2 years. It's very frustrating. Bro, Dems are the worst at what you describe. What do you mean?
When MSNBC is saying it, or whenever, you know, the Associated Press is covering it in that way, they're doing a disservice. If they truly have a left-wing point of view in the way that, like, so many imply, then they have to recognize that simply offering contentious coverage on a particular matter does not mean that you're doing honest coverage on the issue. So, House GOP leaders head to the southern border as Democrats ready immigration bills. So Democrats are putting forward some immigration bills right now, and the hilarity here is what Kevin McCarthy, California Republican and House Minority Leader, is decided he's going to do a news.
I think Dems are okay, but not great. Debate me. What? What are you talking about?
Conference about the U.S.-Mexico border policy outside the Capitol on Thursday, or did one, and has decided to do a field trip to the border. Remember, these guys are the same guys that laughed at AOC when she, like, went to the border camps and.
Anyway, my point is, this was all foreseeable, and that's precisely what happened. Okay? And I never stopped talking about this stuff. I never stopped covering this stuff. But the issue is, the Democrats never actively communicated the humanity of migrants. The Democrats never took any sort of actionable legislation that they promised they were going to go after. Here we are, 4 years of unimaginably slanted right-wing propaganda that is just filled to the brim with lies about migrants doing crimes, when the exact opposite is true, that undocumented and documented migrants are responsible for significantly less crime per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens are. Okay? And yet, if you ask the average American, they literally think undocumented migrants are doing incredible amounts of crimes. This is a crisis of misinformation, and the Democrats played a significant role in allowing this crisis of communication to manifest by not actively positioning themselves against the Republican Party. And they did this when they had all the power. And here we are. Now, the sentiment from the public has broadly swung in the worst direction possible. In a nation comprised entirely of immigrants and also descendants of slaves and descendants of those who we did not completely genocide, okay, but overwhelming majority being descendants of migrants that came here from all around the world, Americans are officially the most anti-immigrant they've ever been throughout any point in American history. Okay? European-style anti-immigrant sentiment is now very commonplace in this country. It's crazy. What is your source? Trust me, bro. In terms of what? The migrant crime thing that I just said? My source is the Customs and Border Patrol. My source is Department of Homeland Security. There's also numerous studies that have been conducted on this as well in Texas jails and all around the country, as a matter of fact, that show time and time again that undocumented migrants are responsible for less crime per capita than documented and I'm sorry, natural-born U.S. citizens. You can look up the crime data yourself if you don't believe me. I mean, I've shown it a million times over, so I'm not going to do that right now. But my YouTube videos are almost always my YouTube videos are edited after the fact with the corresponding data points. If you wanna fact check me, you can do so. But then also, I have probably upwards of 200, 300 videos talking extensively on the subject matter on my YouTube channel. What should the Democrats campaign on? Immigration on humanitarian grounds. Let them in however they want. What would be a popular message that they should go on? Great question. Democrats should actually actively communicate that this is a nation comprised of migrants and do this, show this reality over and over again, that these guys, the real solution to this issue is to actually document and process these people so they can, one, get amnesty as long as they have not done any heinous crimes or whatever, right? And then be allowed to work in the workplace with the proper modes of legal restitution if they are harmed. You can showcase examples of historically important immigrants in this country that have greatly advanced technology. You can show current examples of immigrants that are incredibly important to the American agribusiness or construction or numerous other sectors where migrants are basically working, both documented and undocumented. Migrants are basically working away from your gaze, but they're still working to keep this entire thing together.
On every day. It's also the kind of work that only immigrants, by and large, are willing to do. There are towns like Cactus, Texas, all over the country. And with President Donald Trump promising to carry out mass deportations, a sense of fear and uncertainty looms over these streets. What are you hearing specifically from people?
They're scared. They don't know if they're gonna be able to stay here. A lot of them have been here for decades. They've built their lives here. Their kids are here. Everyone they know is here.
Elizabeth Oliveros grew up in Cactus, the daughter of immigrants who became citizens and earned their living working in the city's meat processing plant. She went away to college, became a lawyer, and moved back to Cactus to work as an immigration attorney. And if there were to be mass deportations here in this city, what would happen to it?
It'd be quite empty. I think there's a lot of people here that don't have status, that keep a lot of the businesses, the smaller businesses around here running. So if immigrants leave, I don't know where they're going to find workers as hardworking as some of the immigrants.
As we walked the streets of Cactus, it was clear.
But you countries that were pro-immigration in like 2014 are now super reactionary too. I feel like there's just inherently a right-wing swing when you get an influx of immigration. I don't know what you can do about it. Noam Chomsky famously talked about this with respect to Sweden, that the right-wing shift against refugees came before refugees even started coming into Sweden. It actually predates refugees coming into Sweden. It started not because refugees were coming into Sweden. It started because austerity measures were kicking in. And this is the classic phenomena all around the Western world. Okay? You cut back with austerity measures, the social safety nets that people took for granted throughout their entire lives. Okay? You remove all semblance of hope that they can have a better future than the one that the previous generation had. Okay? Everything starts sucking, basically. All the public transit is no longer as good because it's underfunded. Public education is no longer good because it's underfunded. Okay? The reason why a lot of the governments in Western liberal capitalist nations, in Europe, for example, do this is because they want to implement privatization measures. But you can't just privatize it overnight. A lot of people would revolt against that sort of thing. So the way to do that is a long and convoluted, sometimes complicated process of crippling the structures that exist and then presenting privatization as the only option going forward, and then presenting it as a tax cut as well. This is the Reagan-style neoliberalism that took place in the United States of America and obviously by Thatcher in the UK as well. And it has made its way to some of the most supposedly resilient social democratic governments in even Nordic nations now. Okay. It's never about migrants coming in, and it's almost always about the fact that people's material conditions are getting worse and they're angry, and right-wing parties will often redirect that anger, just like we do here in the United States, at marginalized people, at people that have less than them, the poor, homeless, the infirm, but also, of course, in Europe, refugees. This is virtually a universal way to approach politics from the right. Constantly engage in cost-cutting initiatives and then justify tax cuts that way, starving the beast, if you will. All of the social safety nets are crippled. They no longer can cover the growing population that has, and then an aging population, especially in developed nations that have even more needs, right? And in that process, when people get angry, use that anger and resentment to further beef up your support by claiming that the anger should be directed back at the newcomers that don't look like you, that might not even speak your language, that are scary and dangerous, that actually are doing crimes all the time, okay? And that's precisely what has happened in many other parts of Western Europe especially, and that's what's happening in America as well. Look no further than the media story cycle that took place in Springfield, Ohio. This is a direct example of what happened. Like, it was so perfectly captured in that little sliver of time, right? Springfield, Ohio, a town that has been completely gutted by neoliberalism, manufacturing moved away, people are becoming poorer and poorer, the exact same issues that American workers face anywhere around the country, they're certainly facing in Springfield, Ohio. Manufacturing still has needs, right? The manufacturing and the jobs that still exist need working hands, okay? Haitians that now have temporary protected status will go to Springfield, Ohio. Once a couple Haitians with temporary protected status go there, they're like, oh, there's a lot of jobs here. So a bunch more come, okay? They start working and revitalizing the economy of the town, just like undocumented and documented migrants had done in places like Hazleton in Pennsylvania, completely revitalizing the town's economy. Okay? But the people that already were there, the people that already lived there, are angry and resentful. They feel like these guys cut the line. They feel like they're getting a better shake. They feel like they're getting a better deal than they did, that the government has undermined them. If you listen to the people in Springfield, Ohio, so much of the anger and frustration was born out of their social safety nets withering away, perishing. Them thinking that those social safety nets went away and they no longer get the same service from like the welfare office in time in a reasonable manner because there's too many Haitians in line in front of them, right? The real problem in that situation is that Springfield, Ohio did not have their needs met, basically. They didn't have enough finances to make up for the extra people that came into the offices. So if you don't solve that problem, a competent government is supposed to solve that problem. They're supposed to say, okay, we need more translators, for example. We need to figure out what will make this process more efficient so people don't wait in fucking line all day, every day to get their welfare check, right? But they didn't do that because they never do that. The American government never does that, okay? So the people are left thinking these scary foreigners who are black that came into this town are actually taking not only the jobs that I could have been doing, but also on top of that, they're taking away my welfare, all right? They're in America, though, speak English. It's so funny to say this about Haitian people who also do have the capacity to speak English, but on top of that, they literally speak more languages than you, dumb fuck. What are you talking about? That's so funny to be like, oh, you came to America, speak English. These guys are refugees with temporary protected status coming in from a country that we have destroyed, by the way, okay, actively. And many Republicans remember that we actively destroy this country, because Hillary Clinton played a role in the destruction of Haiti, at least in contemporary Haitian history. And that's precisely the reason why they used to love talking about how the Democrats ruined Haiti. Hillary Clinton ruined Haiti. But they forgot about that when the Haitians are eating, you know, cats and dog stuff was popping off. Anyway, Haitians do usually know both French and English. Exactly. So my point is, Springfield, Ohio was a perfect example of people that recognized that their material conditions were worse, that their social safety nets were not expanding and keeping up with the needs of the population that was getting poorer and poorer. And then they just redirected that anger and frustration to people that were coming into the town. That's it. That's a great example. Now, am I silly enough to suggest that if all of these people's needs were met, that there would be no racism? Of course not. There would still be plenty of people who are like, I still don't want black people in my neighborhood. Okay? Of course. But a big chunk of the population would not be so angry and so resentful about their own circumstances that they would also jump on the hatred train. That's it. Politics is about managing, politics is in many instances about managing the broadest subsect of society and their attitudes, okay? And people are very malleable. You can convince people that their neighbors are not evil, but in order to do so, you have to also make sure that their needs are met.
That most residents, regardless of their immigration status, didn't want to speak with us on camera, and especially didn't want to talk about President Trump's deportation dreams.
I don't like politics. I don't like.
The fear among many in this town and other agricultural communities across the country is that vital food production would be paralyzed and communities torn apart. The meat processing plant here says it only hires people authorized to work. Under different management in 2006, the plant was raided by immigration authorities. About 300 people suspected of identity theft or being in the country illegally were detained, many of them deported. Elizabeth Oliveros remembers the day clearly.
I was in elementary school, and I remember they had to keep us because they didn't know how many of us, our parents, were gone, and a lot of my friends.
Hatred is like alcohol. It makes you feel better temporarily, but it doesn't improve your situation. It enables you to do horrible things, and it's more socially acceptable when you do it as a group instead of alone. That's a cool quote.
Their parents were gone. They got deported.
9. The children at Cactus Elementary are mostly oblivious to the political storms brewing outside.
Yeah, a lot of those companies self-report themselves to ICE, by the way. At least the famous case that I always bring up is the Purdue Chicken Factory. The Purdue Chicken Factory that had a lot of issues with sexual harassment on the assembly line and were refusing to engage with back pay. So they were basically stealing from the already hyper-exploited undocumented migrants that they had brought to that area, okay? Knowing full well that they were undocumented migrants, like they actively hired them, okay? And then when it became too problematic that these workers were actually looking for, their wages to be paid back to them, the company realized that calling ICE on its own facility and then paying a minor penalty for hiring undocumented migrants would be far better than simply paying the undocumented migrants what they actually had earned. So they did that. They called ICE and they got a slap on the wrist for hiring undocumented migrants, as is the law. And then they turned around and went back to the same neighborhoods to hire a new crop of undocumented migrants. And they put them directly in the same trailer parks that they had set up. This is a part of the business strategy in the United States of America, okay?
These school walls. Principal TJ Funderburg is bracing for whatever comes next.
It's just the unknown that scares me to death.
He says as many as half the kids in the school could have undocumented family members. These are the kinds of places where the reality of mass deportations could play out. To the people who are going to be making these decisions about deportations, whether it's mass deportation.
If you can find the Fast Food Nation Richard Linklater cycle, that would be fantastic. If there's like a brief cycle that we can use as a summarization of that.
Just broad or targeted. What's your message to them?
Just,
I gotta pee.
mean, come talk to me. come meet these kids. You know, I know there has to be rules, there has to be checks, there has to be balances, but it can't just be paper. This community of people that have come together, that are here now from all these different countries, all these different places, we can do amazing things.
We're going to get more now on President Trump's latest moves. There are many, and we turn to our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce, for more on that. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Rebecca. Well, President Trump is moving swiftly and aggressively to enact his agenda, including his promised crackdown on immigration. But this morning, his efforts are already being challenged in court.
This next order relates to the definition of birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment of the United States.
One of President Trump's executive orders will face its first legal test tomorrow. A judge in Seattle considering a temporary restraining order against Trump's directive ending birthright citizenship, which is protected under the 14th Amendment, and declares that any person born on U.S. soil is an American citizen. 22 states from Connecticut to California have now filed lawsuits to block the move, estimating that some 150,000 children would be impacted each year, born disenfranchised.
I have one message for President Trump. I'll see you in court.
Trump has promised historic mass deportations, his administration revoking a policy that barred arrests in sensitive areas like schools and churches.
They're pretty scared. Lots of questions about, are they safe here at school? Are they safe riding a school bus? Can they be just walking down the street and picked up? Lots and lots of fear.
Denver schools are now instructing staff on what steps to take if they're contacted by agents about a student. And at Washington's National Cathedral yesterday, with Trump there in the pews, Mary Ann Buddy, the Bishop of Washington, confronting him on his immigration crackdown.
The people who pick our crops, clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors.
Making a plea to the president.
I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here.
I listened to this speech. It's actually pretty good. Like, I mean, it's not the intended target of the message is not going to reach that target, obviously, but it's actually pretty good. It's not like it's not like lib shit or whatever. It's actually pretty solid. And we'll cover that in a second. Hold on.
God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land.
But that didn't sit well with the president, overnight calling the bishop a radical left hardline Trump hater, saying her statements were inappropriate. And the president continues to dismantle.
Yeah, fake Christians, when they see an actual Christian push for, Christianity. Like, dude, American Christians, when they actually face a real Christian message, go, oh, what is this woke nonsense? Okay. Oh, what is this woke DEI commie nonsense? So that's what I'm going to talk about as well. Okay. I'm going to get to that right now. So a couple things took place here. Number one, I want to show you during the sermon, I want to show you Trump's and JD Vance's reactions.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families.
Come on, JD. I thought JD was a real Christian, a real born again Catholic. What happened? You don't like it? You don't like it when someone is preaching to you about, like, some of the best tenets, some of the most consistently good tenets of religion, which is like, be kind to your neighbor, turn the other cheek, that sort of stuff is so funny, man. These guys hate quote unquote Christians when you hear about some of the good stuff in religion. Immediately are like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean be kind to your neighbor? Well, I'm sorry, love thy neighbor? Not on my watch, brother. I swear to God, if Jesus came back to earth, I mean, if Jesus Christ came back to earth and he was like, unfortunately, born in like Texas, okay, they would kill him with hammers. Okay, the evangelicals would capture him and beat him to death with fucking hammers. Okay, they would literally be like, oh, we should crucify this fucking asshole. What is this? What is this piece of shit talking about? Feeding the hungry and curing the lepers? Get the fuck out of here, dude. How about we don't do that? Okay, yeah, what is this woke commie nonsense you're talking about? Jesus, what is this woke Mexican style communism you're talking about, Jesus? Come over here, boy.
Some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens.
They're so uncomfortable. They're like, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear about the humanity of the people that I have actively campaigned to kill, okay? I don't like this. I don't like this one bit.
Or have the proper documentation. The vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, Wadara, and temples.
So they hated that. And I love that Representative Mike Collins, okay, proudly serving Georgia 10, said the person giving this sermon should be added to the deportation list. Brother, that is so insane. Like, how do you not realize you are a villain, man? Goddamn villain, dude. Like, what is going on? What is happening? This guy is talking about an American pastor giving a sermon on, some of the decent tenets of Christianity. And this guy's like, I don't want to, what are you talking about? You should be killed. Jail or deportation for you immediately. Excuse me. It's psychotic. Yeah. Christians, when you tell them to love thy neighbor, actual Christian stuff. It's just so incredibly cooked, dude. It's so unimaginably cooked. Anyway, here's what Donald Trump said about the woke DEI pastor. And here's how, for the record, just understand, Mike Collins' take about deporting this person got 43,000 likes. Okay? And End Wokeness' tweet celebrating Trump's insane ramblings of the pastor got 166,000 likes. The so-called bishop who spoke at the National Prayer Service on Tuesday morning was a radical left-wing hardline Trump hater. She brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. Now, I need to say something here. There has never been a moment. Why are people saying T? Why is everybody spamming T? Now everyone's spamming it. Oh, because he said it in the end. Okay. That is call sign now? Hey, it's Big T coming at you. Okay. Dude, no. Hold on. I'm not done with this. Because the thing that I find very funny about this is a Republican president who hugs and kisses the Bible, okay, who won big with the evangelicals, talking about how this person brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. Dude, if churches are not allowed to be political, the Republican Party would never win an election ever again. Okay? What are you talking about? Once again, the hypocrisy baiting doesn't work, okay? Because these guys are just straight up stating what they mean. They're saying it's only political if the church is actually abiding by religious doctrine and telling you to love thy neighbor, okay? That's political. If the evangelical church sermon revolves around killing trans people, okay, and then, voting for our God, King, Savior, Donald Trump, then that's not political. That's not political at all. That's not politics. That's good. That's the only type of politics that should be allowed. You understand? It is fucking insane to state this. Anyway, she was nasty in tone and not compelling or smart. She failed to mention the large number of illegal migrants that came into our country and killed people. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Like, the expectation from Trump is, no, that's the only allowed sermon, okay? That's the only thing you're allowed to say in a sermon. How dare you not say that non-citizens were responsible for 29 murders in the fiscal year 2024. That's what he wants her to say. He is just straight up the Antichrist, dude. Straight up. Like, what was the expectation that he just sits in church and the pastor is like, I hate immigrants, man. I hate them. We need to deport them all. Thank you for our Lord and Savior, Donald Trump, God King Trump. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please kill all of the Guatemalans. Please. Amen. The church has gone woke, folks. Many were deposited from jails and mental institutions. He's like, why is this woke pastor not just repeating a Trump rally, repeating some of my finest lies from the Trump rally? How dare this pastor actually go against me? This is some straight up monarch shit, dude. Like, this is history book stuff, okay? This is just literally the king being like, excuse me, I was ordained by God. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? This kind of speech is not allowed. It's a giant crime wave that has taken place in the USA. Apart from her inappropriate statements, the service was a very boring and uninspiring one. She is not very good at her job. She and her church owe the public an apology. And to cap it off, yeah. And of course, predictably, people are just like, let's get one thing straight. This is not a minister of God, and her church, in air quotes, is not a Christian church. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you, my Lord and Savior, Donald Trump. Fantastic stuff from Donald Trump. And also fantastic stuff from Representative Mike Collins, who wants to deport this person who apparently was born in the state of New Jersey. So I guess they're trying to deport her back to New Jersey. Anyway, here was her response on CNN.
And your tone there, so serious and genuine. You see him, he's stone-faced, he then looks down, but he's listening to every word you say. As you made that personal plea to him, what were you looking at him in that moment? What kind of response were you perhaps hoping for in that moment?
I was looking at the president because I was speaking directly to him. I was also, frankly, as you do in every sermon, speaking to everyone who was listening through that one-on-one conversation with the president, reminding us all that in the people that are frightened in our country, the two groups of people that I mentioned are our fellow human beings, and that they have been portrayed in all throughout the political campaign in the harshest of lights that I wanted to counter as gently as I could with a reminder of their humanity and their place in our wider community. And I was speaking to the president because I felt that he has this moment now where he feels charged and empowered to do what he feels called to do. And I wanted to say, you know, there is room for mercy. There's room for a broader compassion. We don't need to portray with a broad cloth in the harshest of terms some of the most vulnerable people in our society who are, in fact, our neighbors, our friends, our children, our friends' children, and so forth.
So you spoke, I like how you use the word gently, because it was gentle. I mean, it was intense and passionate, but yet it was gentle. It was not ugly or confrontational. Wouldn't expect it to be, but you know, these are hard things to talk about in that context. You spoke obviously about undocumented.
Nothing pisses off conservative Christians more than like a real ass Christian, okay? Like a pastor, a bishop that abides by, you know, the good things in the Bible. Nothing pisses them off. That's why they also hated Jimmy Carter too, right? Jimmy Carter as president did a whole bunch of awful stuff. But I have always maintained the position that like Jimmy Carter, I think, was spiritually a very frustrating person for a lot of evangelical Christians who hated the fact that he was doing the Christ-like shit, you know, the stuff that you're supposed to do if you're a Christian, you know, build houses, help feed the hungry. Like, it's just so frustrating to them. It's kind of like the way the Democratic Party despises the likes of Bernie Sanders, because like Bernie Sanders shows the rest of the population of Democratic voters like how you could be a competent and progressive leader. You know, they hate that. They're like, whoa, you're not supposed to actually want to walk the walk. You're supposed to just talk the talk, you know, and then do nothing. It's the same thing. It just like kind of exposes them as the frauds that they are. So they just despise it. They hate that. They absolutely despise a Christian person who actually abides by the good standards set forth in religious doctrine. Okay?
Migrants, also the LGBT community, the two communities you're talking about. I wanted to play a little bit more of what you said, and also, again, the president's reaction at that moment.
There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. The vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away.
What made you decide to say all that today?
Well, these are the people that I know. These are not abstract people for me. These are actual people that I know. So I wanted to speak on their behalf. I wanted to present a vision of what unity can look like in this country that is sending of differences and viewpoints and acknowledging our common humanity. Yes. I wanted to speak in such a way that reflected that dignity and respect, but I also wanted...
Disgusting. Woke nonsense. How dare you? Christianity is supposed to be about killing thy neighbor if I suspect thy neighbor of being Guatemalan, okay? That's what Christianity is about. Excuse me. What the hell are you talking about? Evangelical Christians operate in the exact way that Reddit atheists claim Christians are like all the time. They operate in the cartoonishly evil, villainous ways in which Reddit atheists, like militant atheists, depict them as. All the time, like all day, every day. They're like, whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean about love thy neighbor? How dare you? I'm not loving anybody except for Donald Trump, my Lord and Savior. Fuck you.
To bring into that space the real humanity of the people of
American Christianity is satanic. It's prosperity gospel is such an obvious satanic interpretation of Christianity. It is hilarious to me. Okay. It is like the most evil thing that masquerades as being godly. It is crazy. And it's the most popular form of Christianity in America. It is nutty to me. What do you mean a rich man has the same likelihood of getting into heaven that a camel does through the eye of a needle? That's stupid gay shit. That's woke DEI. Sounds like Marxism to me. Fuck you. How dare you say shit like that? Heaven is woke now. Anyway.
That I was referencing.
What is this? This is funny. Coming from a Christian household, we went to the same church my whole life. When I turned 18, my pastor gave a positive stance on abortion and started a clinic to aid immigrants in southern Arizona, and my family left the church. That's amazing. Nope. They just noped. They pieced out of God, dude. Hassan, Republican, coming out today? What do you mean? Yeah. The house of God has gone woke, folks. We need to put an end to this nonsense, okay? The liberal activist, by the way, here's Colin Rugg. The liberal activist bishop who told Trump to show mercy to LGBT kids says she called out the president because it was her responsibility to counter him. Your responsibility is not to turn a sermon into a political debate. Wait, what? Dude, these people have not gone to any churches, right? Because I've been inside of churches, okay? I've been inside of churches. Let me tell you, there is not a single church that does not engage in political commentary. It's either political commentary like this one, okay? And there are plenty of wonderful churches that do this, okay? Or if you go to if you want to hear infinitely more radical commentary, go to a black church, specifically African Methodist Church. The African Methodist Church I went to in LA was like all about how, you know, all about fuck the government. Any church that presents liberation and preaches liberation theology will obviously always have some incredibly radical and awesome takes as well. Jeremiah Wright comes to mind. But the rest of the churches, the overwhelming majority of churches, as a matter of fact, in the United States of America, are unimaginably right-wing and incredibly political. There's so many MAGA pastors. One of them that was at the inauguration even did a rug pull. She was given a great honor today, a chance to unify America around a Christian message at the dawn of a new administration. Instead, she disgraced herself with a lecture you'd hear on CNN or an episode of The View. What an embarrassment. Dude, they can't understand that is a unifying Christian message. Like, it does not read in the same vein for them. They're so bludgeoned in the head, both literally and figuratively, with right-wing reactionary propaganda that, like, a person saying it's godly and Christian-like to love thy neighbor is seen as a woke message that has no place in the church. It's the fucking Bible. That's in the Bible. God damn America, that's in the Bible. Oh my God. I'm losing my mind. Here, all right, well.
Where governments lie, God does not lie. Where governments change, God does not change. And I'm through now. But let me leave you with one more thing. Governments fail. The government in this text, comprised of Caesar, Quirinius, Pontius Pilate, Pontius Pilate. The Roman government failed. The British government used to rule from east to west. The British government had a Union Jack. She colonized Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, and Hong Kong. Her navies ruled the 7 seas all the way down to the tip of Argentina in the Falklands. But the British government failed. The Russian government failed. The Japanese government failed. The German government failed. And the United States of America government, when it came to treating her citizens of Indian descent fairly, she failed. She put them on reservations. When it came to treating her citizens, as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
I love that. It's one of my favorite takes of all time. Straight up. That was Obama's pastor, by the way. And because of that, obviously the Republicans immediately went after Obama and were like, Obama is the Antichrist who hates America, all this stuff. And Obama had to, of course, no longer associate himself with Jeremiah Wright, and he canceled him. And of course, this is the Boondocks, famous Boondocks clip.
I say motherfuck America, motherfuck America's mother, motherfuck America's daddy, America can eat a dick, America can lick the balls.
This is hilarious. No notes, you know? Not even paraphrasing. I mean, basically the same exact one. Basically the same exact thing he said. Anyway, so yeah, that's the case right there. All right. So the notion that, like, obviously these guys or churches are supposed to be apolitical is a very funny one coming from the Republican Party. But of course, as is the case with reactionary dipshits, all the way from the silliness that comes from the wokeness ruined video game, right-wing political commentators, all the way to the top of the party ticket, the president. Politics is when woke. Politics is not when, right-wing politics is happening. That's normal. That's common sense. Okay? That's why video games like Call of Duty are not political. But video games where there's a woman in it are political. Okay? Just remember that. Let's hear what the Fox News, Fox and Friends has to say about this woke, gay-ass bishop.
Yesterday, the presidential party and members of Congress and whatnot, the hoi polloi of Washington for the most part, went up to Washington's National Cathedral for a national prayer event. And there at the lectern was Bishop Marianne Edgar Bood, and she gave a sermon that, it's described as a sermon, but really it was a lecture where she told the new president, go easy on migrants and refugees and members of the LGBTQ community. If you missed it, It's gotten a lot of support in some quarters and a lot of criticism. Here she is.
I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear.
Dude, JD Vance's face here is so gross. He's like, oh, I can't believe I'm getting lectured at a sermon. What are you, a preacher? What am I, sitting in a church pew? What is this, a sermon? What the hell's going on here? Oh, that's awesome. I know I didn't cover this yesterday, but it is so funny how angry this got Republicans, dude. And how angry they got in the funniest ways possible.
For their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals.
Oh my God! It's always good to learn. What was that, John, or was that Paul?
I don't know. She didn't go through scripture. Okay,
Right.
and she
Yeah.
gave a political speech.
Absolutely.
And it comes from generations of preachers. I would have walked out. I commend the president for being graceful, but I'm JD Vance. I'm looking crazy. Like, what is she talking about doing a sermon? I don't think it was the appropriate time. If you had something to say to the president that may be a little political, if you wanted to talk about the president exercising mercy, then you could have asked for the president for a few minutes of his time and said, Mr.
Dude, this is amazing. Dude, yeah, wait till they find out about this gay ass Jesus guy, okay? Fucking lame ass, communist ass, brown dude who was, preaching very similar things, doing very similar things, Wait till you get a load of this Jesus dude, bro. He will be pissed, okay? What are they? I don't understand. Like, do they just rewrite the Bible in evangelical churches? Like, what's going on? I actually don't. I legitimately don't know, because I'm not a very religious person in general, and I obviously am not Christian either. Is it just like made up stuff? Like, what's happening? You open the Donald Trump Bible at your Southern Baptist church, and in it is like, you should actually kill poor people, and to be rich is to be glorious. Think that was going on? Like, there's just no takeaway. There's no positive takeaways from their Bible, I guess. I mean, there's like hundreds of different versions, so yeah. I mean, I know, but like, the basic tenets are supposed to still be there. Love thy neighbor is a basic tenet, okay? It is a basic tenet. It's not like an advanced level Bible course. That's like Bible 101, right? That's Christianity 101. If you couldn't figure that out, I don't know what to tell you. Like, what are you looking at? What the fuck are you reading? Are you reading it all? You probably don't know how to read because you were homeschooled, I assume. But like, this is not like really difficult to comprehend stuff. This is not difficult. This is just like super simple stuff. Okay? Leviticus 19:34, when a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong unless he ain't from around here, in parentheses. The stranger who sojourns with you shall be to you as the native among you, on a reserve far away, in parentheses. You shall love him as yourself. If you are a gay lib unless you are a gay lib who hates freedom, or in which case you shouldn't. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt, which was, in parentheses, which was filled with rapists and illegals. I just don't get it. As someone who grew up with this, my parents are MAGA evangelicals. What they do is insidious. They take the verses they deem acceptable and create sermons around it. Most don't actually read the Bible and rely entirely on what the preacher is telling them. And even if they do read the Bible themselves, they somehow twist it to fit their narrative in it. You know what's really crazy about this? What you're describing is the historical interpretation of Christianity in the original Latin, as a matter of fact. The Bible was quite inaccessible to the regular peasant folk who also believed in it. And you know what solved that problem? The fucking printing press. What are we doing? We have literally devolved back to the Dark Ages. What the fuck? It's crazy. It is crazy. I thought we had advanced past this point where people could be like, I don't know if what this preacher is saying is correct about me potentially going to heaven if I give him enough money because it says here that there's a lot of good stuff in here that I actually don't agree with the priest's interpretation of. I thought that's how it happened in the most reductive way possible. How the fuck did we get back to a place where information is readily accessible and people are somehow fucking stupider? It's crazy. The hilarious part about this is that love thy neighbor is not even, like I said, an advanced version of the Bible. It's not like you have to, you know, dig deep to try to figure this out. It's like one of the more popular, I would say, tenets of Christianity. Super basic stuff. You know, VeggieTales. Exactly. VeggieTales shit, man. Chatter is correct. Preachers will take one sentence and will craft a narrative around it with the final message being, let's thank Jesus for inventing spaghetti. Meanwhile, the sentences before and after, the one they chose, lays out in great detail how we should feed the poor. Yeah, also, what you're describing is literally how that psychotic Moonies adjacent gun fucking cult was created in the Christian church in the United States of America, initially in Pennsylvania, and now I believe they have a compound in either Tennessee or Texas, one or the other, I can't remember. They call it the Church of Iron because of one singular passage, the gun cult. Like one word out of a passage and a false interpretation is enough for someone to be like, yeah, actually, the Rod of Iron Ministries is the name of the fucking church. We've covered it extensively on this broadcast. Like the guys that go get married to their guns and stuff. It's super basic shit.
Mr. President, this is the issue that I feel. But don't get up there and try to preach a sermon that you cite no scripture for.
Well, she's not going to talk to him because during the George Floyd riots back in 2020, she said she'd given up trying to speak to Trump and said that he needed to be replaced. So, you know...
Look at the children. There's children there, too, that are hearing this message.
Well, here's the thing. You know, the president's team should have known that she could have said things that were inappropriate for, or, you know, stuff that they didn't need to hear or was not appropriate.
Just Google her.
That's all they would have to do. But instead, they put him in that position.
Oh, yeah, this is a old meme, but pretty funny still. Every lifelong Catholic I've ever met is like, I think we're supposed to give this food to poor people. And every adult convert is like, the archon of Constantinople's epistle on the Pentecostine rites of the Eucharist clearly states women shouldn't have driver's licenses. Pronounced archon. No, I love the Catholic converts. What is this? Can't get enough of these guys? Nighttime erection data for my 19-year-old son and me. His duration is 2 minutes longer than mine. Raise children to stand tall, be firm, and be upright. Did your son give you permission to share these? This is very sensitive and private information. I excitedly proposed it. Dude, I'm gonna be honest, white people have evolved in a very dangerous way, okay? Thank you, M. Hunt, for showing me this wonderful, wonderful thing. I don't know what happened here, but somewhere along the line, this is it. This is dangerous stuff, man. This must not be. You cannot try to copy this, okay? Please. I will never forgive Dr. Yakub for his crimes. Never, ever.
Position where he's in the front row.
Why was she selected? Is she's
the bishop,
rector of the...
Of that bishop, of that particular national cathedral. Here she is last night on CNN explaining what she wanted to do.
I was speaking to the president because I felt that he...
Oh, they're so mad.
She was nasty in tone and not compelling or smart. She failed to mention the large number of illegal immigrants that came into our country and killed people. Many were deposited from jails and mental institutions. It's a giant crime wave that is taking part in the USA. Apart from her inappropriate statements, the service was very...
Can you imagine how insane that sermon would look like if she said that? Like, also, they deleted the T part. What's happening?
No,
they deleted T. Big
T.
T.
She is not very good at her job. She and her church owe the public an apology. You got this historic moment. She decides to give a lecture.
Wait, they're not going to talk about the T? They left out the T. That's Big T. That's his new call sign.
A self-important person who probably had AOC jot some notes down before.
You know what? I mean, she has every right to her opinion. We all have an opinion on this issue.
Right.
But I don't like it when ministers bring politics into the pulpit and try to lecture you. So I agree with you. Maybe pull him aside after the service and say, Mr. President, may I talk to you for a little bit? There's something in my community that bothers me and that I need to tell you about. and just have an adult conversation, but do it privately? Because now everyone's talking
But
about
the issue that she's asking for mercy on when it comes to the border, did you go and speak to any of the families that were killed by illegals? How about coming into New York and talk to the cops that had fire shot at them? Did you ask for mercy for the cops? I mean, that's why you don't get involved in this. She could have said, let's bring the country together. Let's have the spirit of Christ. But she went into some political...
She did say that. That's what she did say. That's literally what she said. That was the whole point. The entire point of her message was, let's unite and recognize the humanity of people that work tirelessly to keep this country going. That is the message. What is going on? She said it in plain English. She used the English language to say the thing that you're claiming she wasn't saying. English. Do you speak it? What is going on? That's precisely what she said. And she didn't come across in the most radical ways or whatever. She didn't do liberation theology or anything like that. She didn't say goddamn America. Okay. She just simply said it would be nice if you could be merciful to those who are tired, hungry, and poor and work to serve the American nation in very meaningful ways. That's in the Bible, she said. Love thy neighbor. You know, that's crazy. These guys they hate the Bible. This is officially the last stage of American conservatism where virtually every part of the project is about vice signaling. Okay? No virtues, vices only. If you have a position of virtue, you must be virtue signaling, and it's bad. If you have an opinion where you're like, can we be kind to people? Fuck you. You also should get deported, which is what that one representative from Georgia said, as a matter of fact. It's so crazy. It's not even there's no room for, hold on. There's no room for oh, well, what this person simply doesn't understand is that sometimes cruelty must be conducted by the right-wing government or whatever. None of that. You know what I mean? No, hey, the reality is much more complicated. None of that. Just straight up no, we're bad people and we like to do bad. And if you tell us to not do bad things, that means you're wrong and gay and woke and DEI and fuck you. That's why I said earlier, if Jesus came back to earth today, they would kill him. They would literally kill him.
Damn, this guy's good.